Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game, and on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry, live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios. This is the start of the football season. The Titans open training camp tomorrow. They practiced on Wednesday. This, every year, is one of the most exciting times of the year because it is the wow, we made it. We finally finished out. Let's be excited. We set our official expectations for the Titans on days like today. It has always been the week that training camp starts, the Monday of training camp. It has always been the 2 o'clock segment in which we lay out our official expectations for the Titans season. But not today. Because while I wish that we could start on a better note, yesterday, I, like many of you, got the news about the passing of Mark Howard. And so I want to start today. We'll start off the top talking about Mark Howard. We will get into football today. We will talk about training camp and everything else. At 5 o'clock today, the Outkick 360 guys, Hutton, Withrow, and Kaharski will join us, and we'll talk some more about Mark. I got to tell you, I was freaking crushed yesterday. I mean, absolutely, positively just crushed. I know you've got to know Mark a little bit. You know, when I would be out last year, Mark would fill in a lot, and you do a lot of shows with Mark. But I think it probably hit me it hit me pretty hard last night. And it hit me hard for a lot of different reasons. And the first reason is, you know, I was so into sports as a kid that I knew who Mark Howard was for as long as I can remember. As long as I've been into sports, I've known who Mark Howard was because he was on Channel 5. And I remember the whole drama about George Plaster at 99.7 and Willie and Darren had already gone to 104.5. And I don't know why I have this memory in my head of when I had a learner's permit and I was driving my dad's old minivan, which I'm almost embarrassed to say, no disrespect to minivans, but I'm almost embarrassed to say that my dad used to drive a minivan. And I remember learning how to drive on my dad's old Nissan Quest. No disrespect to Nissan, no disrespect to the Quest brand, and again, no disrespect to minivans. And I remember learning how to drive and listening to the Wake Up Zone. And to think that that was 18, 17 years ago or however long ago it was, it really hit me last night thinking about that and how much I listened to those shows. And then to get to know Mark over the last year and a half. I knew Mark and we were friendly, but I didn't really know Mark. And obviously I knew of Mark, but I didn't really know Mark. And then when Floyd stepped aside at the radio station, Mark was available. His non-compete at 104 had run out. And so he told Ryan that, hey, you know, anytime you guys need me, I'll be able to fill in. I'll be able to help out. I'll be able to do whatever. And when he said that, and Ryan told me that, I'm like, well, we absolutely have to get Mark Howard for our draft coverage, and we absolutely have to get Mark Howard for our pregame show. And getting to know Mark over that period of time, which, again, was a relatively small period. Now, I'm going to say a year. And to listen to what everybody else that worked with him, much longer, whether it's Hope Hines or Willie or whomever, talk about Mark Howard, it kind of all aligned with what I got to know of him in the year that we essentially worked together doing the draft and the pregame show. And, you know, he would get on Chris Sanders. And the one thing I say about Mark Howard is, like, Mark Howard, everything that you heard on the radio, that's who Mark Howard was. Like, Mark Howard was definitely grumpy, but I mean that in a good way, like a good sports way. Like, he was as authentic as they come. And I texted you this yesterday, and I tweeted it out, and maybe I take joy in this that a lot of you probably don't. Nobody let off on a caller like Mark Howard did. I mean, some of those Titans postgame shows over the years, legendary. It got to the point where people would call in and would say, now, Mark, don't cut me off, but I got to say, and I loved that. I mean, I can remember when I was in college and I would drive down and go to a Titans game, and I would drive back listening to the postgame show to Mark Howard yell at these callers. And the best were when they would lose, because that's when the real yelling would start. And I mean, it was fantastic. I loved every second of it. I remember one like it was yesterday, driving back there and somebody calling in and yelling at Mark about how they should go back and get Vince Young because Vince Young won. And Mark Howard just let that freaking dude have it. And I loved it. And I told Mark when we started to work together, you know, just a little bit of like, hey, how much I appreciated him as a fan. And getting to know him, I was thinking about this a lot last night and today. You know, when we did the draft, the 2021 draft, and I told Ryan when Mark became available, I was like, we have to get Mark Howard. Because these Titans fans, you know, for 20 years have listened to Mark Howard talk about the Titans. I'm like, we have got to, whatever we do, we have got to get Mark Howard. And so when Mark did the draft show as me, Chris Sanders, TD, and Mark Howard, that might have been two of the most fun nights of my life doing radio. I mean, we had a blast. All four of us, you know, Chris and TD would get me going, and Mark would be Mark. And I think it's crazy to think about the short period of time that I knew Mark as a colleague as compared to knowing him as a listener or as a fan. But in that short period of time, he didn't come to me trying to give me a bunch of advice. You know, it wasn't like, all right, son, let me give you some advice. And I didn't go to him like, Mark, please show me what to do with my career and where to go. And it wasn't that, but I just felt like our conversations, I ended up with a lot of advice, whether it was divorce or whether it was, you know, parenting or whatever it may be. I just kind of felt like I learned a lot, you know, just from talking to Mark Howard. And so I felt really special to know that I have the appreciation for him as a fan, as a listener, and as a colleague that I got to work with him. And Chris and I had a blast doing the pregame show with him last year. And I have to tell you, like, the Titans pregame show that we do, I mean, it was tough because, you know, for 6 years, it was basically built around Floyd. You know, there was a year where I didn't do it, but Floyd it was always, you know, and then he leaves. And so it's me and Chris, and we're thinking about what to do with the pregame show. And to me, it was a no-brainer. We had to go get Mark Howard. And we got Mark Howard, and boy, I mean, you know, he and Chris would give it to me, and me and him would give it to Chris, and we just had a lot of fun working with Mark. And everything that you saw that you thought you knew of Mark Howard is who Mark Howard was. Mark Howard knew everything about sports. Mark Howard, every day, had things he wanted to talk about. There was always something on his mind he wanted to talk about. Last night, when I was watching Sunday Night Baseball, they did an ad for the new Derek Jeter documentary. And I thought to myself, oh my God, Mark didn't get to finish the Derek Jeter documentary. Because if you knew Mark Howard, you knew that he loved that Derek Jeter documentary. I didn't even, you know, I obviously can't talk to him now, but if you were to say, Mark, you like the Jeter I mean, I don't even need to ask. He loves the old sports documentaries. He loves the Yankees. I mean, it would have been, I guess this is a long-winded way of me saying that last night it really hit me, and it really hit me hard. And I don't think there's anything special that I can say that anybody else hasn't already said. I don't think there's anything that I can do that can make it better, obviously, to all the fans out there, because I know how much you all like Mark Howard. Porth told me when we had him on the pregame show last year, we had him on the draft, and we'd have him on, and he'd fill in, said over all the years that he'd been program director. Ryan was program director, Ian, for what, 5 years, 6 years around here?
Sounds about right.
He never got more emails and more positive feedback than he did when it came to Mark Howard. And I don't know if it's the fan in me that's crushed by it. I don't know if it's how I considered Mark a friend that I'm crushed by it. But I'm really, really sad when it comes to Mark Howard. And I heard people this morning, I wasn't going to tell anybody this because it really is not my place, but he brought it up today. I texted Jason Martin last night. I was talking about doing a tribute show. And I was like, the one thing that I told Jason Martin last night, and I knew he'd do a great job, and I thought he did a great job this morning honoring Mark's legacy. And it was like we were talking about before the show. Mark Howard did stuff over here, whether it was filling in or pregame shows or draft, but Mark Howard was a star over there. And, that was his station. He helped build that station. He and George and Willie and Darren and Frank and Kevin and Blaine, and those guys really helped, build that in Nashville. When they were there, it was something. And I think, as I was talking to Jason, I said one thing that I probably regretted from Floyd's tribute show was I feel like I didn't let the callers talk enough. We had so many guests that when I looked back on it, I was like, I wish we had had more callers. And I told Jason that last night, and I listened this morning to Jason, and they had, Hope Hines this morning was talking about Mark Howard, and Kevin Ingram was talking about Mark Howard. But you could hear the emotion in the callers talking about Mark Howard. And I have the same emotion as you all do. And so we're not going to spend all day on this because we weren't Mark's station, even though Mark spent, a year over here doing stuff with us. And I'm forever grateful for the time that I got to spend with him. But I just want everybody to know how heartbroken I was and still am over the news of Mark's passing. I really didn't think I'd talk the whole time here. So if you'd like to say something, I feel kind of bad.
Yeah, well, I go back to the first time I ever hosted by myself whenever you were gone. Mark Howard filled in with me. And he could tell. I was so anxious. I was so nervous. It was my first time hosting a show. I'd been here for a few months. I was shaking. I was nervous. He looked at me and goes, "You're going to be fine, kid. You're going to be fine." And at the time, that just was the most calming thing for me. And I apologize for getting emotional, but
okay.
I think about his son. He was telling me one time, oh, excuse me.
He was all about Jack.
He loved Jack. When I was hosting with him one time, he was telling me at the break about how excited he was to bring his son to this movie. And we were talking about it. And the next day, I asked him, "How was the movie, Mark?" He goes, "It sucked." And I just laughed. And I said, "But you're a good dad for doing that." And at the time, I meant that wholeheartedly. But I'm glad that I got to tell him that I thought he was a good dad. Because overall, we talk about his radio experience and how much he meant to this city and the sportsman in this city. And that's very much so what he was. But when I think about Mark Howard, I think about how much he loved his son.
He did. It's funny because Mark touched so many people. And I don't know if you ever knew that. It's easy to say, that you've touched so many people, but you don't really know. And, I felt like with Mark, the way that you described him saying that movie sucked is so Mark Howard. It's so on brand.
And that's all. It sucked.
And I felt like, I'm not like a huge God person. Some people are. And if you are, honestly, I was to at least get, one season to work with Mark and to do the pregame show with Mark Howard for 1 year. And, it's too bad that it's not going to be 2 seasons or 5 seasons or 10 seasons or whatever it may be. But that I never took it for granted. I never take it for granted. And I remember how I used to sit up there when I first started doing the pregame show. And I, as somebody who grew up, a Titans fan, went to the first Titans game. I didn't give a rat's ass about football. And I went to the first Titans game. And I was a Giant fan by week 3. And I would sit up there and I would think to myself, I'm doing the pregame show with Mark Howard and Chris Sanders. Like, how cool is that? And I've always thought about it like that. Like, I'm doing the pregame show with Floyd Reese and Derek Mason. And, so I'm just really thankful that I had that opportunity. And I'm really thankful that I don't want to say I learned how to do sports talk radio by listening to Mark and Kevin and Frank, and because I listened to a lot of sports talk radio in my life. But I would say that there's a big part of me that's learned a lot about life because of Mark Howard. There's a big part of me that learned a lot about life in the last year, learned about life, sports radio, the industry from Mark Howard. And that was 1 year. So imagine what his impact was on everybody else. So I'm thinking about him. I'm thinking about Jack. I'm thinking about his family. And Mark Howard, gone too soon at 65. So we're starting the show off on to football, because the last thing Mark Howard would want is for everybody to be sad for 4 hours. So we're not going to do that today. I thought Jason Martin did an absolutely outstanding job today talking about Mark. And so my hat is off to him. All right, we do this every year on the Monday of the start of the season. We get to our expectations, how we come about them for the Titans. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company right here on 102.5 The Game.
At some point, it's a combination of who did you play and what does your skill set look like.
Get the best analysis of the big stories in the sports world with ESPN's Jason Fitz.
If you reach for a quarterback in the draft because you need one, you're going to set your franchise back 5 years.
Join Fitzy every Wednesday at 4:30. Presented by Blood Assurance. Jason Fitz.
I am 5'9.5".
On ESPN.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And the Game Nashville app.
Calling a criminal defense lawyer or a divorce lawyer, you may think it's the worst day of your life. It doesn't have to be. If you have quality, competent representation who can guide you through a complex system, we can do that for you. Despite if you've been arrested for a DUI or a robbery charge, whether or not you're going through a divorce or a post-divorce, or demanding your fundamental constitutional right to parent your children. 615-604-6263. AmandaJGentry.com.
If you suffer from joint pain from arthritis or an injury, you know the traditional treatments, pain meds, steroids, and then surgery, right? Willie Donick here with great news. Now there's a better way, and it's here now from the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. This is an advanced, exciting, and natural alternative that can give you lasting relief using your body's own healing power. Listen, steroid shots are toxic to your joints. Pain meds can be addictive, and nobody wants to go under the knife. It's 2022, and those old ways are out. The new way is in. Regenerative medicine, restoring and repairing damaged joint tissue using natural biologics. No drugs, no downtime, no surgery. QC Kinetics and their protocols can address any pain in any joint and give you the quality of life you deserve. So call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics now. 615-249-4024. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024 for QC Kinetics.
Jared Stillman.
Football season, and then football season becomes hockey season, and then it becomes draft season, and then it becomes hockey playoff season.
And Company.
Maybe this is something to just get people a little bit interested.
It's a matter of not having too many chefs in the kitchen.
Catch Stillman and Company on your drive home. Weekday afternoons from 2 to 6 on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
And I can spot it from a mile away.
Watch live on YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope.
Venture X from Capital One is the travel card for people always asking,
where next?
You earn 10x miles on hotels and rental cars, and 5x miles on flights booked through Capital One Travel, and 2x miles on everything else you buy with Venture X. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Never miss a moment of the show.
What is this? Check it out.
Subscribe to the Stillman and Company podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company here on the program. Yesterday afternoon, I was hosting on Sirius XM Mad Dog Radio, which, by the way, Mad Dog in the Radio Hall of Fame. Congratulations to Mad Dog.
Congratulations to Mad Dog.
But so I was hosting on Mad Dog yesterday, and Chase texted me the news about Mark Howard passing. And as soon as I saw it, I was in a break. And I just, I don't want to say like I collapsed, but my heart just sunk when I heard that. And I think I was an hour into a 4-hour show, and I was like, how am I going to do the rest of this show? And then for some reason, I heard Mark in my head saying, get on with it. Let's go. And I'm like, I hear you, Mark.
Fair.
I hear you.
It was pretty ruthless.
And that's kind of how I feel today. I could do 4 hours on Mark Howard. Again, like I said, at 5 o'clock, the Outkick 360 guys are going to join us. Hutton, Withrow, and Kaharski. Look, I was with Mark on and off for a year. They saw him every day for a decade. So I'm really looking forward to that. But as Mark said in my head last night,
get on with it.
Let's go.
Okay,
I can hear Mark
Let's
say
keep
that.
going.
So every year we do this, and Ian, I apologize because I'm about to annihilate this break time here.
Okay.
Every year we do this where we set our official expectations for the Titans season. And we do this in a different way than I think most people do it. We don't go through the schedule, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. We don't do that. We don't sit there and say, well, they were 12-5 last year, so let's start and go there. We don't do that. We don't start by talking about the playoffs. We don't talk about that. What we do, and I've done this literally every year that I've been on the air, including the first year in which I had a solo show, is I break it down into 5 different categories. I look at the schedule and I say, okay, what games will the Titans win? What games should the Titans win? What games should the Titans lose? What games will the Titans lose? And what games are those kind of toss-up games? I don't know. And so yesterday, I put out a notepad in my phone and I went right to it. So here you go. Will win. These are the games that the Tennessee Titans will win in the 2022 season. They will win at home against the Giants. They will win on the road at Washington. They will win on the road at the Texans. They will win at home against Jacksonville. They will win at home against the Texans. And they will win on the road at Jacksonville. So that's Giants, Washington, Houston twice, Jacksonville twice. Anybody got any problem with those?
I made my own list, and we have one discrepancy in the will wins.
You're going to add a team into the will wins.
No, I'm not, actually.
You're taking a team away from the will
Not
wins?
from the... I still think it's going to be a win. It's more so a should win, and that's Washington. If I viewed
they freaking suck.
The Titans should win that game because the Titans are a better team, because the Titans have a better quarterback, because I don't believe in Carson Wentz. But the Titans always lose a game they're not supposed to.
Okay, hold your list.
I look at Washington to be that. But
hold your list because we'll get to
list.
that.
Yeah.
Should win. They should win at home against Denver. I am not a huge on the Denver train. At Philadelphia. Now, I had some thought about this on the road at Philly, but I just don't think Jalen Hurts is very good. And I just don't think Philly's very good. So I think they should win that game. At home against Dallas. Now, I do think Dak is pretty good, although I don't think he's the 6th best quarterback in the league like the John Madden football game said. But I do think that they should win at home against Dallas, and that's a Thursday night. And remember that Thursday nighters are much harder on the road team. At home against the Raiders. But I'm nervous about the Raider game. In fact, as you can see, I put, but I'm uneasy after Raiders.
Yep, you did put that.
So I'm nervous about the Raiders game. But again, Denver at Philly, Dallas, Raiders should win. 4 toss-ups, both Indianapolis games. And I don't know, like last year, I want to say that I put one Indy game as a should win and one Indy game as a should lose, I think. I can't remember. Right now with the Colts, I could see Matt Ryan stabilizing that team and that group and everything else. But I'm also not sold on the Colts like everybody else that's just sold on Indianapolis. And all they ever do is talk about how good Indy and Frank Reich and Matt Ryan. I'm not there. Toss up against the Colts. At the Chiefs, I think it's a toss-up game. In the last 3 matchups, the Titans are 2-1. They have been close games except for the one here last year where they blew the Chiefs out. Tyreek Hill is not in Kansas City anymore. I have at the Chiefs as a toss-up game. At home against Cincinnati, I think is a toss-up game. And you know why I decided that at home against Cincinnati was a toss-up game?
Why?
Because the game against Cincinnati last year literally went right down to the wire, and the ball was popped into the air, and one guy caught it. And if the other guy had caught it, the other team would have won. Is that not the definition of a toss-up?
Pretty much.
The ball's in the air.
It was tossed up.
Whoever catches the ball wins the game. So I think Cincinnati's a toss-up. So both Colts games and the Chiefs. I felt like a bobo doing this because it only left me with 3 games. I think they should lose at the Chargers. I think they should lose at the Bills. And they will absolutely 100% lose at the Packers. So 2 should loses at Chargers, at Bills. 1 will lose at the Packers. So again, just to recap for everybody out there, my official expectation, they will win 6 games. At home against the Giants, Washington, Houston, Jacksonville, Houston, Jacksonville. They should win at home against Denver, on the road at Philly, versus Dallas and versus the Raiders. It's a toss-up with the Colts, both games, the Chiefs, and the Bengals. They should lose at the Chargers, they should lose at the Bills, and they will lose at the Packers. And then the way I come up with the official expectation is I take the will wins and the should wins and half the toss-ups, and that's how many games they'll win. 6 will win, 4 should win, 4 toss-ups. That's 12. My official expectation is 12-5 for the Titans. You know what the Titans were last year?
12-5.
12-5 were the Titans last year. And I felt like some bobo. Again, I've got 6 games they will win, and I've got 3 games combined that they should lose or will lose. How do we feel about 12-5? I want to say I was 13-4 last year as my official expectation. How do we feel with my official expectation at 12-5?
I mean, I think that's, if that is what turns out to be, that's a pretty darn good season for the Titans. But that's where I look at your list, and I think mine was very similar because it leaves room for a lot of toss-up, because I think that's what it's going to come down to for the Titans this season.
I only had 4 toss-ups, though. So but, you probably put Denver and Philly, and you probably
I put
those
the Raiders.
So let's just go through your list.
I just went through the season.
Okay.
Giants will win. I put the Bills as a will lose. Raiders should lose just because I think Derek Carr is a better quarterback. Colts should win. Both Colts games I should win.
So you really don't like the Colts?
I mean, I really do think that, and I said this last year, and I say it again this year, I think that the Titans are going to split the Colts games. I think they're going to win one. I think the Colts are going to win
Then
one.
How can you have them both as should win?
Because should win, I still think leaves enough interpretation. I could have one Colts game as I should win, one Colts game as I should lose. But I think those are really kind of a toss-up.
Okay.
I have Washington
and
as
when
a
they go in
should
the toss-up
win.
list?
Well, I don't have a toss-up list. You didn't put that as an option.
Oh, my God. It's every year?
All of the 1 year that I've done this?
Okay, so what did you say to those toss-ups?
Okay, those are toss-ups. I do have Washington as a should-win game because if I look at any of these games, the one Vrabel special that I see in here is the Washington game.
I tried to factor in a Vrabel special, and I couldn't do it for one reason. Like, they should lose against the Bills, but...
I have the Bills down as a will lose.
You have a will lose?
I only have 2 will loses, and that's the Bills and the Packers.
They smoked the Bills 2 years.
I know.
They've beaten the Bills 2 years in a row.
The past 2 years.
So it's hard for me to not say, to say that that's a should lose. Or a will lose. Here's the crazy thing. Every year, one game I've said that they will win, they lose. And every year I've said that they will lose a game.
And they win that game.
And they win that game.
Yeah.
So that means that they're going to beat the Packers on Thursday Night Football on the road at Lambeau in November.
But I do think that between the Raiders games and the Chargers games, that the Titans are going to split those games. They'll either beat the Raiders or beat the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm uneasy about the Raiders.
I have no scientific formula behind that other than just it just feels like those are games that the Titans absolutely can compete.
So I have the Chargers and the Bills as should lose. I have as much confidence in the Titans going on the road to Buffalo and winning as I do in the Titans going on the road to the Chargers and winning. Because they never win at the Chargers. Even though
it's a long road trip.
Even though they won last year in the same building against probably a better team. But that's my official expectation. 12-5. What do we think about that? We'll get y'all's reactions as well. So Caroline, we'll get your official expectation. Ian, we'll get your official expectation on the other side. And of course, we'll get your reaction as we set the official expectation for the season, so that when anybody says, which apparently the Predators last year decided they'd get real big into this idea of, well, we said this or you said that. Let me tell you, this is official. 12-5 is my expectation for this season. I don't know if that means they'll win the division or not, because I didn't do one of these lists for Indianapolis. And I don't cover Indianapolis, so I don't know Indianapolis that well. But 12-5 is my official expectation. Too high, too low, what do you think? 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, right here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
If you're on the road between downtown Nashville,
They're still in good shape to make the playoffs.
and I-840,
Players make it clear they don't want to be somewhere anymore.
there's a new way to hear all your favorite shows and sports programming on 102.5 The Game.
I go back to that play and I shake my head. What I was worried about is that they were still just going to keep the goal.
It's 106.3 FM.
Think about all the good Titans teams.
This is very much so a run-first offense.
Now you have two choices to hear Nashville's best sports talk. Check out 106.3 now and add it as a favorite.
Hey, Willie Donick here. Are you feeling the sting of higher interest rates and higher costs? Those credit cards and other loans are costing more and more every month, and inflation is making everything else more expensive. Your home can save you right now. Your home value is up, and there's a ton of cash in it that you can access with Loan Pronto. Loan Pronto specializes in zero-cost cash-out home refis. You can get tens of thousands in as little as 2 weeks. Pay off those 23% rate credit cards and other loans. Consolidate everything into one super low payment. People who do this usually cut $800 or more from their monthly budget. If your home mortgage rate goes up a point or so, it's offset by your credit card rate going to zero. So call Loan Pronto now and unlock that equity and wipe out the bad debt. Do it now. You can even skip your next 2 house payments. Call 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Nothing makes one feel better than the ability to give to someone in need. You have the power to give the most important gift of all, the gift of life, with a donation of your blood. Supplies are desperately low in our area, and your help is needed. Blood Assurance is a nonprofit community blood center that supplies our Middle Tennessee area hospitals. Please find it in your heart to donate. Be someone's hero today. Go to bloodassurance.org to find a location or blood drive near you. That's bloodassurance.org. Give blood, give local, save lives with Blood Assurance.
Nashville's Best Deals is a great place to save cash fast. Get up to half off or more on dining and entertainment at thegamenashville.com/deals. Check back often for new featured deals and save money now at thegamenashville.com/deals.
Hey Nashville, what's the best part of hockey? That's rhetorical. We all know the answer. It's the 3-on-3 overtime, the speed, the skill, the tic-tac-toe passing. It is electric. Well, now there is a new, totally 3-on-3 ice hockey league called 3 Ice, coming to the Music City on August 6th. They're playing at Bridgestone Arena, and tickets are available now at 3ice.com. 6 teams touring across 9 cities, playing a bracket-style tournament at each stop. It's overtime all the time. Hair on fire hockey. Log on to 3ice.com for tickets now.
When Smashville wants to rock.
I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. Looking to the sky to save me, looking for a sign of life, 'cause it's too cold for you here.
We are Nashville's rock station. 102.9 The Buzz.
Hey, this is Pekka Rinne. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
For the last 3 years, in the postseason, fans have very high playoff expectations. But what are your playoff expectations for this year?
First make them, and then win.
So that's Mike Vrabel's expectation.
Make the playoffs and win.
By the way, last night on Sirius, so my number one topic was about Bill Belichick, and I said that I don't think Belichick's the best coach in the league anymore, and somebody asked me who I thought, and I've said many times on this program that I believe that, in some order, Vrabel, McVay, and Shanahan, at this point in time, are better coaches than Belichick. And I think Mike Vrabel is the best coach in the NFL. And I got some guy in Baltimore, some caller, called me a total homer yesterday, and I was so offended. And I was like...
It does kind of sound Homer-esque.
It does, like, local Nashville radio host goes on a national station and says the local guy is the best coach.
Yeah.
Right. But we all know that I'm not a Bobo.
Well, we know that.
And so my response was, go ask Mike Vrabel if he thinks I'm a local homer or not, and he'll tell you the answer. I was like, ask Mike Vrabel if he likes me, because that will give you all the answer you need. If you tell Mike Vrabel that I said that he's the best coach in the NFL, he would be floored that that came out of my mouth. So I just want to say that. Because I'm not a freaking honk, but I do have the Titans going 12-5. That's my expectation, again, based off of games they will win. Like, they'll win against the Giants at home, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the easiest one for me to put down as a will win.
Oh, my God. At Houston is way easier. Houston freaking stinks. Then again, division games, and, the Titans have not played great against Houston lately. But they'll win those games. You take the would win, the should win, and say those are wins. The toss-ups, you take half of those. And then you take the should lose, will lose, and the other toss-ups, half of that. That gives you your expectation. Mine is 12-5. Caroline, what is your expectation for the 2022 Tennessee Titans as training camp starts tomorrow?
Tallying it all up from my list, I have the Titans going 10-7.
Whoa.
Let it be known.
How did we get to 10-7?
Let it be known my expectation last year was 12-5.
Caroline Fenton hates the Titans, everybody.
I don't hate the Titans. But
I'm just saying she
I'll
hates
go through
Titans.
my list, and I think that the Colts will be both a toss-up. So that's an automatic loss. Giants will win. Bills will lose. Raiders should lose. Colts should win. Commanders should win.
Hold on, what did you say for Raiders?
Should lose.
You think they should lose to the Raiders?
Yes. I don't think that they absolutely positively will. But I think that I would not be surprised if the Titans dropped that game.
Okay.
Commanders should win, and then Colts should lose because I think they're gonna split those games. Texans will win. Chiefs should lose. Broncos should win. Packers will lose. Bengals should lose, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was a toss-up game either. Eagles should win. Jags will win. Chargers should lose. Texans will win. Cowboys should win. Jags will win.
So it sounds like you have a lot of shoulds and woulds.
I do have a lot of shoulds.
Not as many wills.
But yes, because I think there's a lot of games on this schedule.
No, I mean, like,
either way, like the Jags and the Texans, I feel confident about that.
Yeah.
The Packers are going to win that game, but there's a lot like the Bengals, the Eagles, the Raiders, the Broncos. Those are all teams that I don't really know if they're going to be good teams or not. And honestly, with the Titans, I don't know if they're going to be a dominant team or not.
Ian,
there's a lot of toss-ups in here.
I'm gonna have I have a lot of toss-ups as well.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
Do we have again? I should have pulled up the list from last year. I guess I just did.
The list I have on my desk only included my picks, so I might have to go back through an email and look.
Did we have that many toss-ups last year? I don't feel like we did.
The Colts, I feel like, are usually always toss-ups, right?
I remember thinking no, they will absolutely, positively lose that game at Indianapolis, and they tried.
But I think the last year, a lot of the games that we expected the Titans to lose, they all won those games, but then lost dumb games, like the Texans.
Oh, that happens every year.
And the Steelers, yeah.
Every year. There was a 4-game stretch in 2016, the first year that we were doing this, where they went on the road. They had Denver, who was the defending Super Bowl champion, at home. And they're the worst team in the league in 2015. And they had the defending champs at home. Then they went to Kansas City. Then they went to Jacksonville. And they beat Denver, and they beat Kansas City on like a miracle Ryan Suckup field goal. And they ended up losing and got housed against horrible Jacksonville. I mean, there's no way to predict this, but every year they drop a will win. Like last year, the Jets will win, lost, and then they always win a will lose. Like, I don't know if it's Kansas City or if it was Buffalo or whomever, but the Rams on the road, they won those games. Ian, give it to me.
Okay, going down the list here, week by week. Giants will win. At the Bills, I'm going to go with will lose on that one. Raiders here versus the Titans, I will go with should win because it's a home game. At the Colts, toss-up. At Commanders, should win. I'm not going to go will only because it's on the road. Colts, toss-up. Texans, Titans will win. Titans at the Chiefs, on the road, toss-up. Broncos at home versus the Titans. I will go with Titans should win. At Packers, I'm going to go will lose. Night game at the Packers. Bengals versus the Titans, toss-up. Titans at the Eagles, toss-up on the road. Jaguars versus the Titans, will win. At the Chargers, I will go should lose. Home versus the Texans, will win. Versus the Cowboys, toss-up. Jaguars will win.
Okay. So give me what's the final tally there?
I'd have to do the tally.
So I tried to write down some of those as I could. I was surprised how many of these Ian and I agree on. Like at the Chiefs toss-up, I think most people, you have it as a will lose. I think most people would put it in
I have it as a should lose because
Okay.
I didn't have any toss-ups. I didn't know that was
yeah,
at play here. So I tried to kind of divvy up should lose and should win with all of the games that I had toss-ups. I think that the Chiefs game absolutely is a toss-up. I think the Bengals game could be a toss-up as well.
My theory on the Bengals game is last year it literally came down to the ball in the air.
A toss-up.
And if the guy catches the ball, if Westbrook Akina catches the ball, then the Titans are probably in field goal range. If, Eli Apple, which apparently don't get callers around the country started on Eli Apple, because yesterday apparently there was an unmitigated disaster.
I will waste very few of my breaths on talking about Eli Apple.
Well, Wesley in Long Island wants to get in on Eli Apple.
Wesley, I'm not interested.
So here's what's crazy. Right now, I feel like our expectations, I believe mine last year was 13-4. I believe yours was 12-5.
I believe
Ian's was 11-6.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think everybody went last year. I don't, again, we don't know Ian's official tally yet, but I do think that collectively our expectations for the Titans are lower, and that's crazy because the Titans were the number 1 seed in the AFC last year.
But things are different.
And we didn't take
This year's different.
We did not take the Julio Jones cheese last year. Everybody else in the city of Nashville, except for us, took the Julio Jones cheese. We were the only ones that were like, don't do it. We were the one. And yet, as I look at it, I mean, I'm a game less than I was last year. Now, they did get a tougher draw last year with the fact that they're playing the Packers. And the year before, they played a New Orleans Saints team that had lost Drew Brees. So maybe that factors into it, who they're playing.
And I think we also all have different expectations for Ryan Tannehill this year than we were going into last year.
Well, we'll get to Tannehill.
Lower expectations.
We'll get to Tannehill here in the near future. Ian, do we have your final tally yet?
Not yet. I apologize.
Man, this math's hard, man. I'll tell you.
Math is hard.
Well, I'm trying to rewrite them all down and go back through.
Got it.
But I wouldn't be surprised. You're at 12-5. I'm at 10-7. I
If
wouldn't
he's
be
at
surprised if he's
9,
at like 11-6.
yeah.
Because that's where we were last year. We were all kind of on the same page about what games were going to be toss-ups, what games are maybe you should win, maybe you should lose. I think we're all kind of on the same page here of the games that they're going to win, the games that they're going to lose. But it's those in-the-middle games that we're kind of, discrepancies on.
Are these some homerific takes to have every year? Winning record. I mean, this is a...
I think it's realistic.
I'm a little worried about that.
I think it's the reality of being in a pretty poor division, that you have 4 wins that are kind of gimmies.
I asked somebody yesterday about somebody that does NFL radio. I asked about, what's the team this year that you would be surprised by if they were to come out of nowhere and they were to... And he said the Colts. And I was kind of thinking more like the Bengals last year, where like a team that freaking sucks, like Washington, were to end up in the Super Bowl. That's kind of what I was thinking, not Indy, but maybe Indy is the surprise team this year. All right, we'll get Ian's record on the other side, and then we'll go right to your phones because I see them lined up. 615-737-1025. But again, my official expectation, 12-5. Caroline's official expectation, 10-7, which 10-7 is not
bad.
Competing for a championship. I mean,
You're making the playoffs when you go in 10-7.
I know, but you're not competing for a championship at 10-7. I don't think so. At least, teams get lucky, but
do you expect to compete for a championship?
I don't know. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get your thoughts in on that on the other side. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys. They do a fantastic job taking care of my home, and I promise you that they can do the exact same for you. That's right. Hey, this month in July, Hiller is celebrating the home of the free all month long with special deals for our customers. This month only, take advantage of free whole home surge protection and interest-free financing for 12 months with the purchase of a new whole home generator, or a free programmable thermostat and interest-free financing for up to 48 months on select new HVAC units. They've got a free water sensor leak detector and interest-free financing for 12 months when you buy a new tankless water heater. And all these purchases come with a free Happy Hiller Club membership. Their work is backed by the Happy You'll Be or services free guarantee, and these deals are only happening this month in July, so call as soon as possible. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
Let's put the green flag in the air and turn them loose.
Nashville's home for NASCAR.
He's going to try to make a big move here.
It's brought to you by the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. We are your racing station.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And the Game Nashville app.
From the Fox 17 News Code Red Weather Center.
I'm Fox 17 News Code Red meteorologist Dan Guthrie. Mostly cloudy this afternoon with scattered showers and thunderstorms developing. High temperature, 92 degrees. Heat index up to 102 degrees.
Brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Attention investors.
You know, in business, timing is everything, and today your timing is perfect. Credix Corporation is operating in many of the fastest growing and most profitable industries: real estate, retail, e-commerce, the CBD market, and family golf entertainment, with more to come.
We're helping investors on Main Street, not just Wall Street.
Credix recently entered into an agreement to purchase USA Hemp Store. One of the affiliates of the USA Hemp Store is NFL Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Namath.
Credix is offering an investment opportunity into shares of common stock at $1.20 per share. Invest for a $20,000 minimum investment, although we have the option of accepting subscriptions in a lesser amount.
Become an investor in one of the most exciting public companies today.
Space is limited. Call now for your free investor information kit. 800-881-1528. 800-881-1528. Or visit credixcorporation.com. CREDEX Corporation.com. An investment in Credix Corporation, the company. The information herein is not meant to replace or supplement the term sheet. For complete information and full disclaimers, visit credixcorporation.com/invest.
Your company's hiring. Who isn't? We would love to show you how to use 102.5 The Game to attract and retain employees. We can also help you find the exact person you're looking for with a targeted digital campaign. You can trust our team to help you build your team. Email us at together@cromwellmedia.com.
If you suffer from joint pain, from arthritis, or an injury, you know the traditional treatments: pain meds, steroids, and then surgery, right? Willie Donick here with great news. Now there's a better way, and it's here now from the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. This is an advanced, exciting, and natural alternative that can give you lasting relief using your body's own healing power. Listen, steroid shots are toxic to your joints. Pain meds can be addictive, and nobody wants to go under the knife. It's 2022, and those old ways are out. The new way is in. Regenerative medicine, restoring and repairing damaged joint tissue using natural biologics. No drugs, no downtime, no surgery. QC Kinetics and their protocols can address any pain in any joint and give you the quality of life you deserve. So call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics now. 615-249-4024. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024 for QC Kinetics.
Robbie Stanley.
They get a lead in that game and just totally close the door.
Joe Rexrode.
If he plays next year, it's disastrous.
Robbie and Rexrode. Mornings from 6 to 10 on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
presented by TriStar Moving.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
So Ian's the kind of friend who makes things not fun. And Ian's
Isn't that nice to hear, Ian?
Well, Ian's expectations for the Titans. Again, mine, my official expectation, 12-5. Caroline, 10-7. Ian has 7 toss-up games, and because you take half the toss-ups, half win, half lose, what do you do with 7? Which is amazing that I've been doing this for 6 years and have never run into this problem.
Leave it to me. I'll figure it out.
I have never. So, do we count it as 10-7 or 11-6? My inclination would be to round up. So if it's 10.5 wins, you round up to 11.
To 11.
But then what do you do with 6.5? Because if you're rounding up, then don't you have to round up the other side? So
that is true.
And
That's
they're not
going to
play.
Tricky.
They're not going to play 2 extra games.
Ian, what are your toss-up games? Maybe we can decide the one
Okay,
game
maybe
that we could decide either way.
Dallas is the toss-up.
Okay.
Philly, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Oakland, both Colts.
That's tough.
Dang it.
That's tough.
Those are all my toss-ups, too.
All right, we're putting Ian at 10-7. I don't know why.
Let's put the Colts, one Colts game a win, one Colts game a loss. Is that fair? And then you still are left with 5 toss-ups.
Left with 5.
So this is
so
hard.
that's where we are. Let's go to your phone. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. What do we have in the text line?
One texter texts in and says, last year I had the Titans going 13-4 too. I think this year it's 9-8. Saying they'll be better than 11 wins is unrealistic to me.
The 9-8. Like, here's the thing that's crazy about the Titans season. And again, I have 6 games they will win. The Giants, Washington, Houston, Jacksonville, Houston, and Jacksonville. But if you win 6 games, you stink. So that's not like it's over the top. My 4 should wins, Denver, Philly, Dallas, the Raiders, those aren't bad teams. Those are not bad teams.
No.
In fact, you can make an argument. Now, I wouldn't make the Jalen Hurts argument here, but you can make an argument that in every other game, the Titans will have a worse quarterback for every team that they're playing except for the Giants, Washington, Houston, and Jacksonville. Because Denver, Russell Wilson, better quarterback. Philadelphia, I don't think Jalen Hurts is better, and I don't think many people think Jalen Hurts is better, but, again, we'll get to where Jalen Hurts, whatever. Dallas, the Raiders, I think most people would say that those quarterbacks are better.
Yeah.
Indy, Madden, not to say that the Madden football rankings are what decides all of this. Madden has Tannehill at 83. They have Matt Ryan at 81, which tells you that the gap between those two, at least according to the video game, is right there. I don't know why I'm using their rankings, but other than Dak Prescott at 6, I think their rankings might be the best rankings I've seen.
For Madden?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to take it to heart, but I also don't think I'm just going to throw it out the window with
By the
Madden.
way,
It's
Madden has
interesting.
Matthew Stafford at 85, which means that Tannehill's only 2 clicks below Stafford. I think it's probably fair.
But I also see a lot
Not
of
a huge
people
Stafford guy.
just shaking their fist at Madden. But I've seen so many rankings, quarterback rankings or preseason rankings for all of these teams on ESPN, Athletic, whatever it might be, whatever outlet it may be. I've seen so many rankings that I think are just absolutely egregious.
Oh, sure.
Like Lamar Jackson out of the top 10.
So the only thing with Madden that I have a problem with is I don't know how you could put Dak Prescott ahead of Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson. I don't
see that.
I know Russ is older, but you can't just say, well, he's older, so I think. It's what have they done? And Russell, over the last 3 years, much better than Dak. What else we got?
Another texter texts in and says 12-5, I think, is very reasonable this year.
I mean, they were 12-5 last year. But they had to go about getting there in the weirdest way possible. And I'm not one to sit here and say, if this guy doesn't get hurt or that guy doesn't get hurt, or that's easy to do. But I am going to throw if they don't play with 90 players next year, if they go into some of these games that they easily could win, if they just had a capable roster, like at the Patriots last year, where it was still a ball game and they lost because they didn't have a roster, and at the Steelers last year, which they lost because they didn't have a roster, and Tannehill choked. But if you go into that and you have one guy instead of the Racy McMath bumville that they put out there in those 2 games, then you're talking about 13 or 14 wins for this team, and that is elite.
But I think if we're going to play that game, the what-if game, then you could also talk about the Bills game, because that was an inch
that
decided
saying, though,
that game.
So I agree with you. But what I'm saying is, not to what if it to one player, but to what if the 90, 90, that is one thing that's kind of tough for me. 12-5, I think I said that
that's
we
a
would
good
learn
season.
We would learn what this was, the 17-game schedule, because I don't know about you two, but I think there's a big difference between, in the 16-game schedule, 12-4 and 13-3. Like that, when I hear 13-3, I think elite. 12-4, I think 12-4, you're pretty good. 11-5, you're good. 10-6, you're good. 9-7, you're average. I mean, I believe that 12-4, good. And I wondered, is 12-5 going to be like the new? Is it going to be 12? You're going to have the 12-4 feeling for that? Are you going to have? And I think after last year, the Titans, I mean, Buffalo won 11 games last year. Mm-hmm. They were 11-6. You can't tell me that's a 10-6 feeling, because that Buffalo team did not feel like a 10-6 team.
That was more of like a 12-4 feeling.
So I'm thinking that the 12-5 is probably more like a 13-3.
Maybe so.
Or a 12-4.
I'd say at least the same as
12-4.
12-4.
I think that's the floor of a 12-5.
I think it's kind of. So you're talking about 12-4 in the old. 12-4 is.
I mean, that got the Titans a bye week. It was the AFC's #1 seed.
It
so.
did. I haven't looked at the other team schedules, and I was thinking about doing this last night, but then I got caught up looking up all these quarterbacks. I need to look at Buffalo's schedule. Whenever it comes between the Titans and the Colts, whenever there's all this talk about, if I were to ask anybody just, Titans or Colts and why, nobody except for me brings up the differential in the 3 games because of the schedule, where the Titans are playing 3 top 5 quarterbacks by every single metric, except for the Athletic, which I believe has Burrow behind Herbert, which I think is absurd. But the Titans are getting Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow, and the Colts are getting Mac Jones, Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, and Kirk Cousins. And that is real. When you're talking about at the end of the season divvying up wins, that matters. So I do wonder what Kansas City's schedule looks like, for instance. Who are they playing out of the NFC? I think they're playing Tampa Bay, where you're playing the Packers, and how that would add up for, the first seed or the second seed. So when I say the
Buffalo
Titans,
also plays the Packers this year.
Well, the Packers play everybody. When I say 12-5 for the Titans, I don't know what that means in the AFC because I don't know what the rest of the AFC is going to look like. But I would assume 12-5 wins you your division.
I would say so, especially in the AFC South. I think 12-5 wins you the division.
So even though I've said that I'm picking the Colts over the Titans, and my official expectation is 12-5. What do I do now?
But also to that,
I don't know.
12-5 on paper sounds like it should win you the division, but when you look at the Colts schedule, the Colts have a significantly easier road.
Nobody talks about that though.
No, I think that's an underrated aspect.
Nobody here talks about
looking
that.
at the season.
You have 3 of the top 5 quarterbacks, and they have 3 of, probably quarterback third. No, they have at least
they have
2
average
bottom half
quarterbacks on their
quarterbacks.
schedule.
Yeah. I mean, especially if it's Trubisky. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. I have a pet peeve. So every year, Mike Sando comes out with the quarterback tiers, which I have right here. And these are 50 NFL coaches and executives. So forget about the scouts and the players that Jeremy Fowler has in his. And this is every quarterback. And every year, Mike Sando does this. And every year, everybody talks about it. And every year, people say the Athletics list. It is not the Athletics list. It is the NFL list. And what they say about Tannehill, very interesting. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company. It's 102.5 The Game.
You watch The Game.
Line to left. Coming on Newstrom. Base hit. Sounds win.
We talk The Game.
But they knew he'd be really good. Well, if they don't make that move, they don't win those championships.
We are The Game. Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Hey, it's Mike from Newton Ford. When this hot summer weather comes, I'm reminded of what my grandmother used to say. It's so hot outside, the hens are using pot holders to pick up the worms. I was never really sure what that meant, but when she said it, I knew it was hot. I mean, if things are hot, that tells you something. And it's not always good. Take your car, for example. If it's running hot, something's wrong. If your air conditioner, like so many people, is blowing hot these days, something's wrong. When your tires get hot, they wear out faster, which means something's wrong. But here at Newton, we want to help right those wrongs. We have an amazing service department that'll keep your car running its best through all this heat. We have amazing technicians ready to diagnose and repair your car no matter what the problem is. We want to keep your car running smoothly in the easiest way possible. So let us help. Schedule your service online today at newtonford.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
Hey, it's Jared. If you're listening to us on I-24 towards Murfreesboro or I-65 towards Spring Hill, make sure you check out 106.3 for another great way to hear Nashville's best sports talk.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job?
Not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
Or a mother who's in between jobs
and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hungered in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungeredInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne, Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 102.5 and 106.3.
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
We got pass rushes.
Awesome game set. Checker flag in the air.
The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Where you have a voice.
We're one play away from an injury.
He knows this. He's a study of the game.
And we have strong opinions.
He's been awful. I don't think they were trying, and that's why I feel the way I feel.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman and Caroline Fenton. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry, live in the Hillside Medical Game Studios. I don't know what to call this because when I say the Athletics Composite QB tier ranking, or when I say Mike Sando's ranking, or when I say, if I say that these are Mike Sando's quarterback tiers.
They're not.
You're going to be like, you're going to assume, and when I say you, I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about, you, the whole. You're going to think that, like, Mike Sando put this list out, and you're going to think, who the hell is Mike Sando? But it's really not Mike Sando's list. In fact, it is a composite of 50 NFL coaches and executives. He does this every year. He did it at ESPN. Then he left ESPN, went to The Athletic, and so ESPN got Jeremy Fowler, who has to talk to scouts and players, I guess, because he can't get 50 coaches and executives. I don't know. I shouldn't take a crack at Jeremy Fowler. I have no reason to do that. But I guess I did there. So they got, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. Let's forget about tier 4 for a second. But the first 3 tiers. The first tier, Rodgers, Mahomes, Brady, Allen, Herbert, Burrow. My only issue is, and I love Justin Herbert, but Justin Herbert, I believe, should be in tier 2. And I believe that Justin Herbert should not be ahead of Joe Burrow.
And I think, this being a what have you done for me lately league kind of shocks me that Joe Burrow isn't above Justin Herbert. Because Justin Herbert didn't make the playoffs. Joe Burrow got his team to the Super Bowl.
At the end of the day, I believe that Rodgers, Brady, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow are in a class by themselves, and that's how it should be. But again, not my list, and not Mike Sando's either, but that's what the 50 coaches and executives said. Tier 2, Stafford, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, tier 2 is a little too rich for my blood, but I digress. Tier 3, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, and then finally making his appearance at number 17 is Ryan Tannehill. Now let me start off before I get into what they say about Ryan Tannehill by saying that Ryan Tannehill is an incredibly nice guy, and I really like Ryan Tannehill, and I want Ryan Tannehill to have success this season. But we have to be fair. So to be fair here, do you have a problem with Tannehill at 17? And again, this is the NFL executives and the league ranking, and this is not some random guy's list. I think these are real head coaches and real executives that Mike Sando's talking to. Do you have a problem with Ryan Tannehill at 17?
No, I do not.
Ian, do you have a problem with Ryan Tannehill at 17?
He could probably be up a spot or two.
So I don't
But-
have a problem with 17. I have a problem with Jimmy Garoppolo ahead of him. That I have a legitimate problem with. Here's what they say, because some of this is kind of juicy. He's probably a 3, maybe a 3+, talking about tier 3. 3+, a coach who overlapped with Tannehill in a previous season set. Now, I'm going to tell you that I think that might be Zach Taylor. But trying to think of all of Tannehill's former coaches, Zach Taylor, I could see that being Zach Taylor. Then again, I'm not sure that this would mean that it was Zach Taylor. Quote, my heart broke for him that he played so poorly in that playoff game.
It doesn't sound like Zach Taylor.
I don't think Zach Taylor's heart broke. But my heart broke for him that he played so poorly in that playoff game. He was having such a good year. Really, 2 years. Disagree. That's me saying that. But I think that is what it is. Unfortunately, and a couple times they've asked him to be the guy to win the games, and he hasn't been able to do that, which is my biggest knock on Tannehill. My biggest knock is that I think Tannehill, and again, my expectation, official expectation for the season, is 12-5. And I believe Ryan Tannehill can get the Titans to 12-5. The problem is that in order to go further in this conference, you're going to run into Mahomes or Allen or Burrow or Herbert or Deshaun or Lamar or Derek Carr. You're going to run into one of those guys, and not really all that worried about Derek Carr in this instance, but if you get into a playoff game with Josh Allen, you're going to have to throw the ball to win. And that's my problem. That's my problem. Somebody just texted me, and I'm just not revealing their identity because I don't know if they want their identity revealed. They think the coach is Arthur Smith.
Maybe so.
That would make sense.
That would make sense.
That would track. Here's what a quarterback coach said, quote, and this I think is so true too. And remember, I like Tannehill. He's a good guy, but, keeping it real. Tannehill relied on the team more than the team relied on him. Because in moments where he could have brought the team back, especially when they played against Kansas City in the AFC Championship, he couldn't make it happen. I'm still waiting for that defining moment from Ryan Tannehill. It still hasn't happened yet, and that's why I have him as tier 3. He's got tier 2 potential and talent, but in the big moments, it just hasn't translated. You know where I disagree with that coach on?
That he has tier 2 potential?
No, I think he's got the potential. I think he's had the defining moment. I think it was against the Bengals.
The playoff game?
I think that
wasn't a positive defining moment.
I think that
But I think that was a tier 3 defining moment.
Like the Kansas City game, I didn't blame Tannehill for the Kansas City game. Even though if you go back to the Kansas City game, if they had decided to throw the ball or whatever, Tannehill, the Titans had opportunities in the second half. I believe they forced Kansas City to punt down by 4 on the first drive of the second half. That's where if you've got a great quarterback, you need your great quarterback to take you down there and score in the Kansas City game. But I did not hold the Chiefs' playoff loss against Tannehill. I did hold the Ravens' playoff loss against Tannehill. But there were a lot of things you could have blamed for that playoff loss. The defense let Lamar Jackson out, and he broke a run to the house. There's different things you could have put the blame on in that one. There was no way to not put the blame on Tannehill in the Bengals game. I mean, it was so egregious. And so I agree that Tannehill relies on the team more than the team relies on Tannehill. But when the quarterback's coach says he hasn't had that defining moment, maybe the quarterback coach means he hasn't had that defining good moment, but I think he's had the defining moment. An offensive coach who plays Tannehill, Cousins, and Ryan in the second tier thought the cutoff should fall after them. I haven't changed on Tannehill at all, this coach said. He's doing exactly what he does. He is the AFC version of Kirk Cousins. The last 2 years, he has been very successful, very efficient. If you replace Tannehill with Matt Ryan, would you be as successful? I believe you would. If you replaced him with Kirk Cousins, would you be the same? I think you'd be the same because those are all good quarterbacks. Now, if you replace them with some of those tier 3 guys, would they be as good? Talking about Mac Jones or Carson Wentz or Jared Goff, I don't think so. I mean, this is where it's tough, especially for coaches that don't watch the Titans every game. This is where it's tough for me with Tannehill. The 2020 year was so good. And the 2021 year was so bad that it's hard for me to say, is he worse than is he the same as Kirk Cousins? Because Kirk Cousins, I believe, threw something like 30 touchdowns and 6 interceptions last year. And Tannehill did not. But I don't think that much of Cousins. So that's where I think it gets a little difficult for me to try to assess what these coaches are saying. And I'm not saying that these football guys know less football than me, but I do wonder how much they watch the Titans. But then I also have to remember that not everybody has the same opinion as I do. I don't think Tannehill, I could say he's probably on par with Cousins. And the numbers were eerily similar to that of Matt Ryan. And I certainly don't like Kyler Murray. And I think having Jimmy Garoppolo ahead of Tannehill is freaking ridiculous.
Well, I think a lot of execs and coaches that did vote on this looked at, let's put Jimmy G and Ryan Tannehill next to each other. Jimmy Garoppolo was able to at least not throw games away to get his team to the NFC Championship.
But
and that's not something that Ryan Tannehill could do.
I mean, he really did, though. I know it's crazy to sit there and say, because, again, winning is part of the equation when it comes to a quarterback. It's not everything.
Especially playoff wins.
Justin Herbert is, I believe, an under 500 quarterback. It's not everything when it comes to defining a quarterback, but it is something. But, man, Jimmy Garoppolo really stunk this past year. They don't even want him. And it's not just, we drafted Trey Lance, so we're invested in Trey Lance. If they didn't think Trey Lance was better, they wouldn't play Trey Lance. But they're just so convinced that Trey Lance is better, and it's because Jimmy stunk.
But do you think the Titans, let's say, put Ryan Tannehill and the Titans in the same situation that the 49ers are in, that the Titans traded a bunch of picks to move up and draft their quarterback of
let's
the
say
future.
Malik's good.
Would they be trying to get rid of Ryan Tannehill?
Let's say Malik's good. Let's say this next year the Titans go 12-5, and they get bounced in the playoffs, and Tannehill, again, doesn't play particularly well, because I didn't think Garoppolo played particularly well in the playoffs this past year.
I would say that the Titans would be in the same scenario as the 49ers.
That they would turn it over to Willis.
Yes.
Maybe. But the 49ers were there last year, which is why they drafted him. And so the Titans, they're pretty much, but see, the Titans let Willis come to them. They didn't go out of their way to go get Willis.
There's a different investment into Trey Lance for the 49ers than the Titans have invested in Malik Willis. And also, the play from Ryan Tannehill hasn't been so incredibly egregious that they're trying to push him out. He's been fine. But when it comes down to those big games and those big moments, he can't deliver. So at what point is just being good enough to get by in the regular season?
Well, the question is, are you waiting for the defining moment like that one quarterback coach?
Or did you already see that defining moment?
Or are you like
Bengals?
me and you feel like the Bengals game was the defining moment? Because that was the moment for me where I was hard on Tannehill last year, but again, this is not Mike Sando who says, Garoppolo over Tannehill. This is 50 NFL coaches and executives. And I don't know why, and this is probably not fair, but for some reason, I take this list every year more seriously than I take the Jeremy Fowler list. I don't know why, but I do. Tannehill, 17th on the list, behind Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, Kyler Murray, Derek Carr, Dak Prescott. What do you think of it? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Should he be higher? Should he be lower? What do you think? And what do you think about what the executives are saying, which is, Tannehill is what he is. The team has to carry him, and he probably can't get you over the hump. How do you feel about that? Because I do have a thought on that I want to get to. And there's one other thing that I noticed when I really looked up this weekend, a bunch of different quarterback stuff that I was a little surprised by, that I do want to get to as well. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company right here. It's 1025 The Game.
Join Chase McCabe for Chasing Checkers every Sunday morning at 8 for all the news in the world of motorsports.
Joey Logano gets the very first victory in the next-gen car
while hearing from the big names.
Two-time champion Kyle Busch.
Being able to bring NASCAR, the Cup Series, back to Nashville is cool.
It's Chasing Checkers, presented by Ample Collision Centers and the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway.
On ESPN
1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
A News Nation exclusive. Chris Cuomo in his first TV interview since leaving CNN. Chris Cuomo on Dan Abrams Live. Tomorrow at 9, 8 Central, only on News Nation.
Our diamonds are direct from the source, direct from the cutters. There's no middlemen, there's no markup.
Meet Ben Wilkes, 10-year jewelry professional at Genesis Diamonds.
We've got everything from half a carat all the way up to 15 carats and everything in between. So I never have to go looking for something.
And if you're in search of that one-of-a-kind designer ring,
lots of times they come in and she's got a very specific picture, something that she wants, and she's shocked and amazed when I go right to a case and pull exactly what she's been looking at out.
And beyond the best price and selection, every customer at Genesis gets one-on-one personal attention with no hidden agenda.
Every customer that I've ever worked with has my personal cell phone number. It doesn't come from an automated system. It is person-to-person interaction. We're not on commission, so what that means is regardless of what you buy or don't buy, I'm paid the same.
Genesis Diamonds.
Here you get more, you get bigger, better, you get prettier. The quality, the selection, transparency, customer service, it can't be touched. It's unmatched.
Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Make every day a good old day with the hand-cranked taste of Bluebell ice cream. The good old days are being made right now.
If you missed NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck's weekly appearance with Darren, Donick, and Chase.
And I think the question ends up being, like, does somebody turn into that guy? Mm-hmm. Because I think every team that wins the Super Bowl, like, even if it isn't, the receiver that's viewed as like the marquee, wide receiver that's a true number one, that's like, the diva wide receiver that everyone's acknowledging in a certain way. I think you can go to any of these teams that have had success and go, well, you know what? He wasn't viewed that way, but like, listen, Julian Edelman was that. Or, just name the receiver. Antonio Freeman was that. Or you get what I'm saying, right? So, like, I think that somebody still needs to turn into that.
ESPN's Tim Hasselbeck joins Darren, Donick, and Chase every Wednesday at noon on Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN, 102.5 The Game, and the Game Nashville app.
Tennessee First Lady Maria Lee.
Every year, there are 20,000 children in Tennessee who have been abused or neglected. CASA volunteers provide crucial support in speaking up for these kids and supporting them in their search for a safe, loving, and permanent home. CASA volunteers can be the caring, consistent adult in a child's life who can make all the difference. To connect with a CASA program in your area, go to beforthechild.org.
Brought to you by Tennessee CASA in cooperation with the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters and this station.
It's on. It's happening. Remember, you can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter.
Get out of the way. I'm watching the game.
Presented by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Was your 21 season not as good as your 20 or 19 season?
I think a lot of good and a lot of bad, and a lot of things went into it. It wasn't one thing or another. We broke down all the turnovers and what led to those, and it wasn't, any one specific area that really jumped up. It was just, a little bit here, then you add the sum and you get the big growth. So just taking a step back and reevaluating those things and seeing where I can improve upon going forward.
There you go. That was Ryan Tannehill before or during minicamp, before training camp, which starts tomorrow. And I will say it does feel kind of make or break. The Titans have essentially drafted what they hope could be his replacement. And this is the NFL. Got to win now. But the Mike Sando composite of 50 NFL coaches and executives have Jimmy freaking Garoppolo ranked ahead of Ryan Tannehill, which I find to be just disgusting. So this is something that I did some research over the weekend, and I actually didn't even include Jimmy Garoppolo ahead into this group because, I think Garoppolo freaking sucks. So this was some research I was doing essentially on Dak Prescott, and Tannehill happens to be a part of it. But here's what I found to just be crazy. I took, and I averaged this. I didn't take raw numbers. I averaged it over 17 games. Your win percentage as a quarterback and your quarterback rating. So, because some guys, like, for instance, Russell Wilson was hurt, or Dak Prescott 2 years ago broke his ankle, and he missed a lot of games. So it's your win percentage, your touchdowns and interceptions averaged over 17 games, and your quarterback rating. Ryan Tannehill, this is a group. Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins. Ryan Tannehill wins 70% of his games over the last 3 years. Only Lamar Jackson at 74% has won more.
Whoa.
Now, Ryan Tannehill only averages 29 touchdown passes a year. Every single one of those quarterbacks averages more. Dak 32, Lamar 35, Russell 36, Herbert 37, Stafford 36, Cousins 24. He averages 10 interceptions a year, and that is including last year where he threw a boatload of picks. Only Russell and Cousins average less, and they both average 9. So Tannehill averages 10. Everybody else averages more. Russell and Cousins both average 9, which this, when we talk about that one executive or that one coach that said in this that Kirk Cousins and Tannehill are interchangeable. I mean, Cousins averages 34 touchdown passes a year. Tannehill averages 29, and Cousins averaged nine interceptions. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Quarterback rating of this group, again, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Ryan Tannehill, and Kirk Cousins. Only 2 quarterbacks over the last 3 years have a higher quarterback rating than Ryan Tannehill. Do you want to guess the 2?
Tom Brady?
No. Of this group.
Of this group.
Prescott, Lamar, Russell, Herbert, Stafford, Cousins.
Herbert and Stafford.
No. Russell and Cousins are both 105. Tannehill's 102.
Interesting.
Now, again, Dak's 101.6, so they're right there with him. Lamar is 100 even. Herbert is actually the lowest at 97.9. So we dump on Tannehill a lot when we get upset, and the Bengals game is certainly a big part of it. And these coaches and executives clearly don't think much of Tannehill. If they're going to rank Jimmy Garoppolo ahead of him, which I do need to pull up Jimmy and add him in here. But again, I guess it's my way of saying that we have to figure out the question that I asked Tannehill in that cut. Ian, can we get that cut back again? We have to figure out what he's actually talking about when he is asked about the difference between why he was so good in 2020 and 2019 and why he was so bad in 2021.
I think a lot of good and a lot of bad, and a lot of things went into it. It wasn't one thing or another. We broke down all the turnovers and what led to those, and it wasn't, any one specific area that really jumped up. It was just, a little bit here, then you add the sum and you get the big growth. So just taking a step back and reevaluating those things and, seeing where I can improve upon going forward.
So I think that we need to know, and he certainly needs to know what those things are too. But I think that's the key to all this, is figuring out what the difference is between the two. Because, again, over the last 3 years, got a better winning percentage than Dak Prescott. That he throws less interceptions than Justin Herbert and Matthew Stafford. He has a better win percentage over the last 3 years than Matthew Stafford, and he has a higher quarterback rating over the last 3 years than Matthew Stafford. And I turn on the TV, and I feel like Matthew Stafford, that if you don't think Matthew Stafford is as good as John Elway, then you should go to prison for your football opinion, which I think is, I don't think Stafford's that good. I think Stafford's good. I don't think he's that good.
Well,
but again, over the last 3 years, Tannehill's in these categories is better in 3 of the 4 than Stafford is. But, I mean, I don't think 17's that bad, other than I think Garoppolo over there's a little nuts.
But if you look at the big differences between Matthew Stafford and Ryan Tannehill, let's just look at 2020 and 2021. What was the big thing that changed for both quarterbacks?
Well, Stafford won the Super Bowl and Tannehill threw 3 interceptions in the playoffs.
Yes, but Stafford is now on a team with an offensive genius. So went from the Lions to having one of the best coaches in the NFL in Sean McVay. Ryan Tannehill went from having an offensive coordinator that just knew something about Ryan Tannehill that could just unlock Superman in Ryan Tannehill, and in 2021 he lost him. So if you look at that, just those 2 years where Ryan Tannehill looked much better in 2020 than Matthew Stafford did in 2020. Now Matthew Stafford has an offensive genius, and he looks like John Elway. And Ryan Tannehill looks like he's closer to Kirk Cousins than he is a Tier 1 quarterback. I think we can talk all day long about how Ryan Quarterback had a revolving door at receiver, how he
So you
didn't
think it's
have
the coach?
Derrick Henry, how the offensive line didn't do much, but they didn't do much in 2019 or 2020 either. I think it's the coach. I think it's the fact that Ryan Tannehill didn't necessarily have any sort of offensive genius calling plays or knowing him well enough to be able to unlock in him what was unlocked by Arthur Smith in 19 and 20.
Ian, you buy that? That the difference, the problem here, the thing that that moves Tannehill from the second tier to the third tier is the coach.
I could buy it. It seems like
I kind of do too.
I do kind of buy it, but there are some weird things that happened that caused some of these turnovers last year.
There were.
You know, like some of the passes off of Chester Rogers' chest that bounced off a couple of times that led to some picks, a couple of things here and there. But I mean, I think Arthur Smith plays a large role.
I just don't. I do think Arthur Smith plays a huge role in this. Absolutely.
And if you're going to compare Stafford and Tannehill, I don't think you can leave out the fact that Stafford now has Sean freaking McVay as a head coach.
And see, what's crazy about that is I don't even think Sean McVay, and I think Sean McVay's a good coach. I never watched Stafford last year and thought, wow. Like Eric Dickerson, and Eric Dickerson is a Rams freaking Bobo. You know, they call him the Rambassador. Eric Dickerson said before the Super Bowl that Matthew Stafford reminded him of Brett Favre. And I was like, what?
That's a little too much for me.
No, but I mean, there are people that say this stuff about Stafford like he is the freaking bee's knees. Even the Jeremy Fowler, again, it's not his list, but it's 50 NFL people. That grouping had Stafford as the sixth best quarterback in the league. Hell, this list has Stafford as the seventh best quarterback. But let's pull up what they said about Stafford.
Would Stafford ever be ranked in the top 10 pre-being under Sean McVay? No.
I mean, yes, because he was kind of ranked that way, you know, when he and Calvin Johnson were putting up all those huge numbers for those years. But, I mean, like in the last 4 or 5 years? No. All right, here's what they say about Stafford. Let's just, why not go through it? And I'm not saying Tannehill is better than Stafford. But I don't think that, the video game, and I don't play video games, but the video game, Madden, Stafford 85, Tannehill 83, Matt Ryan 81. I think that's where they are. Like, Stafford's a couple clicks better than Tannehill. Tannehill's a couple of clicks are right there even with Matt Ryan, and they're nowhere in the ballpark of like guys like Joe Burrow. That's how it should be. Anywho, an offensive coach says about Stafford, according to this is The Athletic, quote, I think it's fascinating. The whole thing with Stafford, you just felt like here is a guy with all the talent in the world. You get him into a situation with a good staff, a good team, and there's some consistency there. I certainly was not surprised with how he performed. Anytime the head coach is the play caller, you get some chemistry and are on the same page, that's a huge, huge advantage. Let's see what somebody else said. Quote, he still to this day has the best arm I've ever seen or been around. Who freaking cares about that? A voter who was with Stafford in Detroit. Whether it's with a system that suits him or a good partnership with the head coach and all that, a Super Bowl ring gets you an upgrade in my book. So basically the coaches are saying, we thought for forever he was going to be this good, and his team finally won, and I don't think that's the best way to go about it.
And they praised him, McVay as the play caller. And, I mean, Arthur Smith was the play caller here.
You know what my biggest problem with Stafford, the Stafford and McVay, innovative, can't stop them, genius and raw talent put together, and it's like made in a chemistry lab and it explodes. It's like a souffle that doesn't go down. When the Titans played the Rams,
he didn't look great.
I mean, the Titans freaking kicked that ass. And I'm talking about from a coaching standpoint, because Tannehill was lousy in that game too. But from a coaching standpoint, Matthew Stafford played scared, and the Titans, I remember at one point in that game, Chris Collinsworth in the second half goes, it finally took them long enough to realize they had to slide the protection and move Stafford around, and the Titans just beat that booty, and I have a hard time getting over that when everybody talks about McVay and how great McVay is, and and again, not to play if this didn't happen, this. If Brady did his part, it was Brady's team that let Brady down. specifically Brady's defensive coach and coordinator dialing up a blitz at the end of the game. But if they had won that game, if Brady had come back and won that game, that would have been, that's another legendary Brady comeback and another Stafford McVay failure choke job. And because it didn't happen, everyone thinks that Matthew Stafford's destined for Canton, which is absolutely nuts. Think about this. Matthew Stafford over the last 3 years does not have a better win percentage than Prescott, Lamar, Russell, or Tannehill, or Kirk Cousins. He averages more interceptions than all of them except for Justin Herbert. He threw less touchdown passes than Herbert and as many as Russell Wilson. And he is lower rated than Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill, and Kirk Cousins, and has made less Pro Bowls than all of them except for Dak. Dak has 0, he has 0. And yet when it comes to playoff wins, he has 4 because of last year. 615-737-1025. We'll get into your phones on this. 615-737-1025. I don't know. I'm a little torn on how I feel about this whole, Tannehill behind Jimmy Garoppolo. That drives me insane. But also, at the same time, the Stafford love is just infuriating. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company on 102.5 The Game.
Hey, Preds fans.
Sliding across to make the save is Sarah.
You can now hear Nashville's best sports talk.
The backhander, he scores!
And every Predators game on 106.3 FM.
Oh, that was a thing of beauty.
From downtown Nashville to Rutherford and Williamson counties.
Duchesne with the overtime winner.
Catch all the action on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
I'm Joe Namath, here to tell you about another number 12. USA Hemp Store's original number 12. USA Hemp Store cream is hypoallergenic and uses an easy-to-apply blend of ingredients designed to go on gently. And with no odor, no one knows you've got it on. Except you, of course.
The original number 12 CBD creams. Grown in the USA, THC-free, lab-tested. And a portion of every sale supports Homes for Veterans Incorporated.
USA Hemp Store's original number 12 works like it does for me.
With this special Joe Namath offer, get the original number 12 just $34.95. Free shipping on every order. Distributorships available. Call to learn more. 844-305-1212. 844-305-1212. Or visit usahempstore.com. usahempstore.com. THC-free is below the level of detection using validated scientific methods. Alexa Labs June 2022 certification analysis. USA Hemp Store is not making any guarantees about the results of taking any action, whether recommended in this advertisement or not. USA Hemp Store is not making any guarantees nor any endorsements concerning any of its products. Paid endorsement.
We're Saia LTL Freight. For nearly a century, our team has been committed to driving business forward. From Lady Liberty to the Golden Gate, Superstore to Corner Store. We go that extra mile, expanding our team to better serve you. So trust that when you partner with Saia, we take every delivery personally. Visit Saia.com for all your shipping needs. That's SAIA.com.
Men, what if I told you that now you are able to get testosterone replacement therapy in the comfort of your own home? No more weekly trips to the doctor's office. We come to you 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Be seen by a licensed medical professional in the privacy and comfort of your own home or office. You decide. Schedule your appointment today at CoolSpringsMD4Men.com.
Tennessee's tax-free holiday is here. Head to Electronic Express this weekend for great deals on back-to-school essentials like laptops, tablets, printers, and more, all tax-free. This weekend only, get an Acer laptop for $229 or an Apple iPad for $449. Don't miss out on a Microsoft Surface Pro bundle for $899 or an HP laptop for $499. Shop in-store or online with free financing. Electronic Express. We make it happen.
Hiller's Home of the Free is back with more free giveaways than ever. This month, get a free programmable thermostat with select new HVAC systems. Get a free home surge protector with a whole home generator. Or enjoy a free water sensor leak detector with any tankless water heater. Better yet, we'll include interest-free financing and a free Happy Hiller Club membership with these purchases. Celebrate the Home of the Free with us at happyhiller.com.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Hey,
this is Roman Yossi. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Ryan said when he came back that it was a really tough couple of months for him after the Cincinnati game, even went through therapy to kind of get himself in the right mindset. Have you seen a different Ryan, the same Ryan? How has he responded since being back in the building?
I think he's, it was difficult for everybody, and I think Ryan certainly has come back with great energy, great excitement, I think great leadership. His communication with guys that have been here and the guys that are new to our team has been really good, and I hope that continues.
There you go. That was Mike Vrabel talking about Ryan Tannehill. Vrabel tomorrow will have a press conference to open training camp. Vrabel, John Robinson, and Ryan Cowden, the vice president of player personnel or whatever his title is. Why? We've never had a Ryan Cowden at one of these press conferences. What do you think?
Not that I can remember.
What is he going to be doing up there? Does anybody have any questions for Ryan Cowden?
Maybe it's some J-Rob getting his guy some GM seasoning.
I have no idea. I have no questions for him.
I don't know. I don't exactly know what he does.
I mean, I might have to ask the question, why is he up there? But I feel like
if we're going to ask the question on the show.
I feel like there's a reason he's up there that we don't know about, and that will be the reason that, because normally it's just Vrabel. Normally the first day of training camp, because they don't practice. I think they practice Wednesday. So they're not practicing tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But what they do is, they have the opening, and usually it's like Vrabel and Byard and Henry and Lawan and one other, main Ben Jones or Amani Hooker or whatever. And that's it. This is Vrabel, Robinson, and Ryan Cowden. Anywho.
Maybe he's got something to say.
So, as I said the last segment, the Mike Sando composite of 50 NFL coaches has Jimmy Garoppolo ranked as the 16th best quarterback in the NFL. Ryan Tannehill is 17, which is totally embarrassing and sad when you consider that nobody is interested right now in trading for Garoppolo anyways. But my 3-year number crunch, where you take win percentage, average touchdown and interceptions over 17 games, and quarterback rating, Jimmy Garoppolo, 68%, not as good as Tannehill at 70. 24 touchdown passes, Tannehill's at 29. 14 interceptions, Tannehill is at 10. And a quarterback ranking of 99.4, Tannehill's at 102. You don't know what else is crazy about this?
What?
Jimmy Garoppolo averages less touchdown passes than all of them. Tannehill is the lowest, and this is a group of Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, and now Jimmy G. So this is not the superstar group. Jimmy Garoppolo averages 5 less touchdown passes per season than the leader, which is the second lowest.
Second-tier leader.
Which is Tannehill. He averages more interceptions over 17 games than all of them. And he's the guy that's got Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and who was the other receiver that they had? I can't remember. I mean,
Juwan Jennings.
He's got maybe one of the best coaches. Jimmy sucks. How they could put Jimmy Garoppolo on this list, how these NFL people could put, and again, this isn't me. This isn't some media guy who doesn't know what they're talking about's list. This is 50 NFL coaches and executives, including coaches that have worked with these guys before, how they could put Jimmy Garoppolo ahead of Ryan Tannehill. Garoppolo 288, Tannehill. What? So the tier voting.
I don't understand the decimal points of the tier voting.
Someone's got to help me out because it says Garoppolo 16, voting average 288. Tannehill 17, voting average 290. Well, if the voting average is 290 and the other guy's 288, then Tannehill should be 16 and Garoppolo should be 17.
No, I think it's because 29 is closer to 3. So he had more tier 3. Tannehill had more tier 3 votes.
Yeah. Here's what a coach said of Garoppolo in The Athletic, quote, reminds me of Tannehill.
There it is. Wins games, doesn't play for the opponent.
Teammates respect him. The
Yeah.
kind of guy that we can find ways, the exact kind of guy we can find ways to kick off the team.
See,
I hate to be rude. 3 interceptions in a playoff game is not finding a way to kick somebody off the team.
But also, I think, this exact same reminds me of Ryan Tannehill. Well, then Jimmy G's essentially just Tannehill, but he's been to a Super Bowl.
But see, I think Tannehill's better than Jimmy G.
But Tannehill's never been to a Super Bowl. Tannehill threw the game away in the divisional round of the playoffs. Jimmy G at least got his team to the NFC Championship. And you can say all day long it wasn't Jimmy G that got the team to the NFC Championship, but he was still backing a team in the
Super Bowl. The idea of, Jimmy got him to the Super Bowl. Right, and they didn't win the Super Bowl because of Jimmy. And they didn't go back to the Super Bowl because of Jimmy. A head coach said, Jimmy is a 2 in my opinion, and the only reason anyone would say he's a 3 is because of the injuries. This has to be a coach who doesn't do anything. Like one of these coaches that farms out to his coordinators and has a general manager pick the players. Has to be one. Because if this is a coach who watches film and has that opinion of Jimmy Garoppolo, they should be fired. Like if I found out that my head coach said that about Jimmy Garoppolo, I'd fire him on the spot. Most of the threes with a good run game and a good defense are still like 500 quarterbacks. And San Francisco has either been to the Super Bowl or NFC Championship game.
That's the thing.
Do these coaches coach, or are they Peter King? Like
they view Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, he might not be very good, but he at least got his team to the NFC Championship. That's something that Ryan Tannehill couldn't do. He threw the game away before they got to the AFC Championship.
Watch other games. I mean, I almost feel like how Ian was talking about how I guess Ian Rappaport reported that in Kyler Murray's contract, Kyler Murray has to spend 4 hours a day in his contract. 4 hours a day?
4 hours per game week.
Only 4 hours per game week?
That's what it says.
I spend more time watching football. So he's got to spend 4 hours per game week.
Quote, independent study.
What is that like basically like sitting with the quarterback
study
coach?
hall, kind of?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess.
So he's got to go to study hall for 4 hours by himself to watch game film. Because
so is he not doing at least 4 hours of prep work a game week?
Clearly he's not.
How? Are you a professional quarterback in this league?
If you were to drop a contract with Derrick Henry, would you put workout bonuses in Derrick Henry's contract?
Only if you want to give up free money.
I wouldn't really feel like I would need to.
No,
with
you know who you put workout bonuses in contract? The fat players. I didn't say that. You said that.
Leonard Fournette.
I didn't say that. You said that. A former GM asked, we know it's not our former GM, but a former GM asked, why do you think they don't like Jimmy G so much? He is close to a 2 to me, but I'll give him a 3. If I was the owner there, it would really piss me off to be trading so much capital for Trey Lance at Garoppolo's expense. If I was the owner, I'd be like, Trey, you the man. Jimmy fits that tier 3 category perfectly, a quarterback coach said. Like you say, a lower volume drop back pass offense, lots of movement, lots of play action, lots of eye candy with fly jet sweeps, and then you need playmakers around him like he has in San Francisco. I think Jimmy is Carson Wentz. Like, I think Jimmy's at that level where he really kind of sucks. But because he's got a good team around him, people convince themselves that the guy's good. To your phones next. I thought we were going to do phones here, but then I got all worked up. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. We're right to you next. Stillman and Company on 1025 The Game.
The college football season never stops. ESPN college football analyst Trevor Manich joins Stillman and Company every Tuesday at 4:30.
They've got to do what Nick Saban in Alabama has done so successfully over the last 10 years.
Presented by Houston Clinic on Nashville's best sports talk. ESPN 1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
From the Fox 17 News Code Red Weather Center.
I'm Fox 17 News Code Red meteorologist Dan Guthrie. Mostly cloudy this afternoon with scattered showers and thunderstorms developing. High temperature, 92 degrees. Heat index up to 102 degrees.
Brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
A News Nation exclusive. Chris Cuomo in his first TV interview since leaving CNN. Chris Cuomo on Dan Abrams Live. Tomorrow at 9, 8 Central, only on News Nation.
With your home value up again, you are sitting on a pile of money. So don't let it sit there. Use it. Willie Donick here for my friends once again at Loan Pronto. Introducing Loan Pronto's Equity Line of Credit program. You don't have to refinance, but you can access up to 97% of your home's value. Get cash now to pay off all your credit cards or do that home improvement project. Get your down payment for a new home or stash away for a safety net. You can get $50,000, even $100,000 or more out of your home. And the payments are crazy low. Think what you could do with $100,000 right now. Loan Pronto makes unlocking your equity easy, and they can probably even waive the appraisal. Don't just let all that home equity pile up. Turn your house into an ATM machine and get the cash you need. Call Loan Pronto now, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
This is a big month for some of our teammates at Cromwell Media. At 102.5, 106.3 The Game, producer Kenny Adams is celebrating a 10-year anniversary. Also at The Game, morning show producer Michelle Knezovic and part-time producer Nick Keyser are both crossing the 1-year mark. At 102.9 The Buzz, Eric Steele, our rock star evening host, and Andy Herron, a part-time host, have been with us for 8 years. We are Cromwell Media and proud of our employees who commit themselves to excellence every day. Want to join our team? Contact us at together@cromwellmedia.com.
Tennessee has lots of buried pipelines, so it's important to know the signs of a leak, like if you smell unusual odors or hear hissing. Ew. See bubbling earth or water, or dead or dying vegetation. Some signs are even harder to miss, like dirt being blown into the air, a frost ball in an open field, or a flame coming from the ground. If you see any of these signs, don't wait. Leave the area immediately and call 911 or your pipeline company. For more tips on pipeline safety, visit pipesafety.org. A message from the Tennessee Gas Association, Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Your company's hiring. Who isn't? We would love to show you how to use 102.5 The Game to attract and retain employees. We can also help you find the exact person you're looking for with a targeted digital campaign. You can trust our team to help you build your team. Email us at together@cromwellmedia.com.
Robbie Stanley.
To avoid non-contact injuries and not repeat last year.
Joe Rexrode.
Just wait until next year's national TV schedule comes out.
Robbie and Rexrode. Mornings from 6 to 10 on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game, and on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game, and on the Game Nashville app.
Do you find a point where you kind of like put a cap on it? Okay, that's the past. Now it's time to move forward, or do you?
Yeah, no doubt. I've like I said, it's a scar that I'll carry with me, but I'm looking forward to this year. You know, using it as fuel as I move forward. But something I'll always remember. Like I said, it's always there, but at the same time, I've dealt with it. It's in the past, and now I'm using it as fuel to move forward.
There you go. That's Ryan Tannehill. Save that cut for maybe even the next segment, Ian, because I do have a thought on that I want to get to, but I promised phones we go. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
One texter texts in and says, one huge consideration that you're overlooking when trying to make sense of these quarterback tiers is consistency. Tannehill can look brilliant for weeks and then lay an egg.
What about Garoppolo then?
I don't think there's anything about Garoppolo that's necessarily consistent. I don't watch the
here's
49ers
what I'll say,
on a week
Here's what I'll say that Garoppolo is. Consistent. In the 7 games I watched last year, they only play 17 of these, and I think he was hurt for like 2 or 3 of them. He freaking sucked.
He was just consistently bad.
Every game I watched. And it was little crap too, right? Like they're playing the Cowboys, and the game's a blowout, and Garoppolo throws the ball right to the defensive back inside of their own 35. They're at the edge of winning the game by an inch, and Garoppolo doesn't wait for the tackle to get set before snapping the football. Like, it's little stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Against the Bengals, remember that one that I took a video of the TV because Garoppolo has Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, wide open. And Juszczyk is like doing a jumping jack, like, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. Garoppolo's staring at him. You can see the gold helmet pointed right in that direction. He rolls out and then throws it to Juszczyk, who's running across now, not doing jumping jacks, and now covered by 2 people, and the ball gets intercepted. I mean, remember the game here where he just threw the ball to Jackrabbit Jenkins in the end zone. We know Jackrabbit wasn't going out of his way to get the ball. He just threw it right to him.
Jackrabbit isn't any sort of ball hawk.
He made 5 horrible throws in that Titan game that were all big throws. The interception in the end zone when I think the 49ers got an early lead and were really looking to put the game out of reach. And Jimmy throws an interception in the end zone. At the start of the second half, Jimmy overthrows a guy in the middle of the field right into Amani Hooker's hands. Jimmy overthrew Juszczyk on the sideline where he had him wide open that would have put the ball at like the Titan 20. Jimmy on a 4th down overthrew Brandon Ayuk, who was wide open, and there was one other horrible Jimmy throw. And I can't think of it because that was 4, and I know there were 5. But he sucks. What's next?
Another texter checks in and says, the problem with Tannehill is the players around him. No Jonnu and no Corey Davis this year. Over 1,000 yards combined, gone.
Do you know how many catches Jonnu Smith had last year?
I mean, less than 10. Maybe.
Less than 10 catches?
Maybe. They never used Jonnu Smith. I know I'm being hyperbolic there, but the Patriots did not use Jonnu Smith.
Less than 10 would be... less than 10 would be... he had 28.
I'm being dramatic.
But
they did not use Jonnu Smith a lot.
He had 28 catches last year. Corey Davis was a non-factor with the Jets. Now, did Tannehill suffer from lack of talent at times last year? I would agree. But that doesn't mean that the playoff game against Cincinnati, where A.J. Brown's making one-handed catches in the end zone, and Julio Jones had his probably second best game as a Titan and was getting decapitated because Tannehill was throwing the ball behind him. He had his line, he had his receivers, he had what he was supposed to have in the playoff game against Cincinnati, and he turned in his worst performance. To me, the pressure got to him in the Cincinnati game. That was the hard part that I had with that. But again, if that were the case, and that's where these coaches, I think they have to watch game tape, right? What else do they do? The season ends on January 8th, and it's not like those guys stop going to work. Those guys go into the building every day, so they have to watch the tape, right? They have to watch something. They have to do something. The players aren't allowed in there, so I have to assume that they sit there and watch tape.
Probably so.
Wouldn't they see the same things that we see? This guy's got Deebo Samuel, and this guy's got... He's got Deebo Samuel. He's got George Kittle. He's got Brandon Ayuk. He's got the Shanahan offense, and he still stinks. And this guy right here is throwing to Racey McMath. Wouldn't they factor that in this discussion? They should factor that in, except I am convinced of one thing. I don't think these coaches will. I think there's a couple of them out there that, and I don't know who is this way. It wouldn't surprise me if Vrabel was one of these guys that you could look at the coach and the coach would tell you, oh, yeah, in 2019 they played Washington and Washington ran a double fly X seam and he came through. That there are some coaches that literally watch everything.
Can bring up something from years ago and give specifics.
Other than that, I'm not convinced these guys work that hard. Now, I'm not saying that they don't work hard.
Accusation like that.
I'm not saying that they don't work hard, but I'm saying work as hard as they act. Because they're talking in this like media people that don't watch games. The quotes in here are like media people that, well, he got him to the NFC Championship game, so I guess he's got to be good. What? You're supposed to watch tape.
But I do wonder how much of these coaches and execs only focus on the teams that they play every year. And if you don't play the 49ers,
but what are you doing?
Watch Jimmy.
What would you be doing after the season's over?
I have no idea what
you have to watch every team because you're looking at guys that could be on your team.
Are you scouting?
Well, think about it. If I'm a coach, I'm an offensive line coach.
Okay.
And I know that we need a right guard and a left tackle, right?
Yep.
Wouldn't I want to watch every offensive line in the NFL so that if David Quessenberry is available and he started at tackle the last 2 years, then I've seen enough of the tape to be able to know if David Quessenberry is really that good. And what I'm convinced of is that the general managers do that. The pro scouts do that because that's their only jobs. I don't think the coaches do that. I think the coaches probably, once the season's over, what's my homework? We need a report on, okay, yeah, I'll get that done. And then they do it and they have the meeting. Yeah, Bobby, we graded him as an 87.6. And I'm not saying that they don't do any work. I'm just saying I don't think they do the work that they act whenever somebody talks about being a coach and they say, oh my God, it's just the worst. It's just we have to work 20 hours a day. We sleep for 1 hour a day. We have to eat nothing but gruel in the cafeteria. It's
in the middle
just
of the
so
season,
hard.
I do believe that.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, again, you can't say things, in my opinion, about Jimmy Garoppolo like this. And this is a former general manager, and so a former general manager doesn't have to watch tape.
Yeah, his feet are probably kept up on the desk, and that's fine.
But that's
not his job.
If I were the owner there, it would really piss me off to be trading so much capital for Lance at Garoppolo's expense without getting better. That would make me so mad if I was.
But would
Like,
that not make you mad
did-
if you traded 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance and you didn't get better
Did you
when he
watch-
became the starter?
Did you watch Jimmy?
Yes, I did.
I think the whole point here is we're getting this far, and we can't because we're missing wide open Emmanuel Sanders in the Super Bowl. We're getting this far because, we have a good team, and Jimmy craps his pants at the end of every big game. That's what that is.
I think the 49ers found that one missing piece that is stopping them from getting from the NFC Championship or getting to the Super Bowl and not winning the Super Bowl.
Think about how the 49ers went about this, too. They immediately moved off of him, even before they were ready. Like, they were a contending team, and they sold the farm to move off of him down the road. And nobody else around the league wanted him last year when they could have had him.
Mm-hmm.
New England could have traded the 15th pick straight up, and they would have Jimmy Garoppolo, a quarterback who knows their system, and Bill didn't do it. So that tells me that the league doesn't think that much of Jimmy, and no one wants him now. And they've already said, yeah, Trey's the guy. If you didn't think that it was a clear upgrade, you would be doing what the Packers did, which is, we're going to give Jordan some time to get better, and we're going to go from there.
But that's also comparing Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy Garoppolo. I think you feel much more comfortable moving forward without Jimmy Garoppolo than you do without Aaron Rodgers.
If you know the guy who's already there is better, you don't make the change. Unless you're an awful team. If you're an awful team, you make the change. But if you know that Jimmy is better than Trey, you don't make the move. You say, oh, yeah, we're giving Trey more time, and, Jimmy's our guy. But the 49ers are the opposite. The 49ers are, Trey's our dude, and what they're doing is what the Philadelphia Eagles did to Sam Bradford when they decided Carson Wentz was their guy, which was, who wants Sam Bradford? Even though they said Sam was going to be their guy, they were like, who wants him? And they ended up dealing him for a first-round pick. That's what this is, and that's because Jimmy Garoppolo is a lot like Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford wasn't very good. That's my theory on it. Speaking of theories, I have a theory, or it's not really a theory. It's an agreement that I'm willing to put out there on Ryan Tannehill, and it's in the interest of being fair. And we'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company right here, 102.5 The Game.
Heads up. 106.3 FM is a new way to hear 102.5 The Game from downtown Nashville to Spring Hill on I-65 and on I-24 to Murfreesboro.
Make sure you have that preset on your radio dial.
We're making it even easier to listen to Nashville's best sports talk.
Because we have a great show planned for you today.
Tune in to 106.3.
That's what makes this team better.
And hear the difference.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Third Eye Blind, live in concert. Summer Gods Tour 2022 with Taking Back Sunday and special guest Hockey Dad this Wednesday at First Bank Amphitheatre. 3 bands, 1 incredible night. Get tickets now at livenation.com. Part of the Farm Bureau Insurance Concert Series.
When you want to rock.
Let's go, don't wait. This night's almost over. Do all the monsters come out at night? Why do we sleep when we want to?
We are Nashville's rock station. 102.9 The Buzz.
To know what makes Genesis Diamonds so special, you have to understand its origin. Back when owner Boaz Ramon used to sell diamonds only to jewelry stores.
I was selling to more than 700 jewelry stores. I didn't like what I saw.
What he saw in retail stores was grossly inflated prices, limited selection, pricing games, and a sales process that put the customer at a disadvantage. And it motivated this wholesaler to start his own retail revolution.
My passion was to build a place where the customer is going to be very informed. We're not going to hide any information from him. We're not going to have to get diamonds from other people. We're not going to mark up our prices to mark them down.
So Genesis was born. No middleman markups, no commission salespeople, industry-leading warranties, 30 times the selection, a no-holds-barred diamond education that empowers the customer, and a refreshing, relaxed, no-pressure atmosphere.
We created a place where the consumer is the king.
Come and get the royal treatment today. Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway. Now here's Jim Mitchell.
Our fleet vehicle program is a great benefit to all the fleet companies in Nashville. We are able to get their vehicle back on the road a lot quicker than the downtime of most dealers and most general repair shops, simply because we have the transmissions available. We're able to put priority on their vehicles to get them back on the road quickly.
You know it's going to happen, and when your car needs service or repair, remember Mitchell's Mr. Transmission on Gallatin Road, just north of Briley Parkway.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne, broadcasting on Alexa.
I appreciate that.
And other smart speakers. 102.5 and 106.3.
Terang, it's a high fly ball. We got pass rushers.
Awesome game.
Checkered flag in the air.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Where you have a voice.
We're one play away from an injury.
He knows this. He's a study of the game.
And we have strong opinions.
He's been awful. I don't think they were trying, and that's why I feel the way I feel.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman and Caroline Fenton. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry, live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios. Jonathan Hutton, Chad Withrow, Paul Kaharski in 1 hour will join us to reflect on our friend Mark Howard, who passed away over the weekend, who passed away yesterday. So we will get into that with them. I do, though, want to make one pre-training camp. Training camp starts tomorrow for the Titans. One official, I don't know what to call this. A mea culpa, a statement, a benediction, I don't know. Not sure what to say.
Statement.
So I'll say it like this. Everybody knows how I felt about Ryan Tannehill after the Cincinnati Bengals game. That in that moment in time, I have a friend who's an athletic director who fired a coach, and I told him that I always believe that when you decide to fire a coach, or I guess in my case, when I decide to fire a coach on the radio, which is not the same as actually firing a coach, but to me it's the same, because I feel like if I'm going to say they should fire the coach, I should almost artificially put the pressure on, you can't go back on it tomorrow, kind of feel to it. But when I think it's time to fire a coach, there's a moment where it just hits me, and I'm like, this is it. It's time. That happened to me in the Cincinnati game. When he threw the third interception, I knew it was time. That you cannot win a championship with Ryan Tannehill as the quarterback. I think that is well established. I went down every rabbit hole in order to envision a way the Titans could get Aaron Rodgers on the team, how they could get Tom Brady unretired on the team, how they could get Russell Wilson on the team, a quarterback who's actually better than Tannehill, not Kyler Murray, but a good quarterback. And in the end, it probably ultimately wasn't feasible when Aaron decided he wanted to stay in Green Bay. Everybody knows that. I'm just recapping this for everyone because I believe in being fair. Ryan Tannehill deserves a clean slate to start the 2022 season. And Ryan Tannehill will get a clean slate to start the 2022 season from me. I will not come on the air every day and sit there and talk, even in the season. Let's say Tannehill plays well to start the season. I won't sit here and say, but remember the Bengals game. I won't do that because I think he deserves a clean slate. He's the starting quarterback here. It's not going to be Malik Willis. It's going to be Ryan Tannehill's show, and they're either going to sink or swim with Tannehill. Now, the expectation has not changed. I said it earlier today. 12-4, or 12-5 is the expectation for the Tennessee Titans. So I'm not bringing it back. But I'm not going to harp every day on this idea that Tannehill's not good enough. You all know how I feel. You all know that I don't think this team can win a Super Bowl with Ryan Tannehill as the quarterback. You all know it. I'm not going to need to rehash this every single day. Now, the second part of that is, as Malcolm Butler once said, clean slate, but with a full plate. Because, in my opinion, there should be pressure on Ryan Tannehill, and there is. There should be expectations on Ryan Tannehill, and there are. There should be expectations for this team, and I don't want to hear the excuse making. Last year, we went to training camp, and Ryan Tannehill threw a bunch of interceptions. And I remember every day somebody asked Vrabel or Tannehill or Downing or whomever some form of, so is it a good thing that the team is intercepting Tannehill, that it means that the defense is going to be really good, or is it a bad thing that the quarterback is throwing interceptions? And as it is with everything related to the Titans, we got a non-answer back from everybody. Well, it's a little here or there. Every interception has a story. Or, trying this here, there is. The one time where I felt like I got a definitive answer last year during training camp when somebody was throwing interceptions, Logan Woodside threw like 3 interceptions and 5 passes against Tampa Bay. And I asked Vrabel, what the hell? And Vrabel said what they were doing was last play of the game situation. So the ball has to come out no matter what. Made sense to me. I hadn't seen Logan Woodside throw an interception in training camp yet, so all of a sudden I see Logan turning the ball over 3 out of 5 times. I got to wonder what's going on. Vrabel explained it, made sense to me. Nobody said anything about the interceptions last year in training camp that made any sense to me. And then last year, early in the season, Tannehill was panicking with the football, throwing the ball away, and it was Chester Rogers' fault, and it was COVID's fault, and it was Julio's out fault, and we're not doing that this year. So, again, it's a clean slate. Ryan Tannehill's the quarterback of this team. We will see how far he can take them. He does not every day deserve a referendum on should he be benched, because he's not going to be benched unless things get really, really bad. And at that point, the clean slate will have already been filled out. We would have already known what the answer is. But it does come with a full plate because it's time. No more excuses. We will not do that on this show. If something is not his fault, if Ryan Tannehill throws a pass, and I feel like we've done a pretty good job of being fair. Not sure we would necessarily get that credit from other people, but I do feel like for the most part, when it comes to Tannehill throwing the football, we've said, hey, yeah, that ball hit Chester Rogers, that ball, Anthony Ferkser fumbled that football, that ball Racey McMath just dropped. We have been fair, but at the same time, Tannehill made some dumb throws that he didn't get punished for that were alarming. But Ryan Tannehill's going to have to win this team some games this year. Last year, it felt like he only won them one game on the road at the end of the year against that horrendous Houston Texan team. If you want to give him the Seattle game that Derrick Henry clearly won and got the game ball, you can. We gave him a game ball, and by we, I mean me. I gave him a game ball for the Jacksonville game where he didn't really do anything simply because he didn't turn the ball over. That's not my expectation this year. But I want everybody to know that all the harping we've done about Tannehill, all the disgust that we've had about, this guy coming back, and what does it mean in Super Bowl? Can they not? Ryan Tannehill, in my opinion, deserves a clean slate. And I'm willing to give Ryan Tannehill a clean slate this season. But every single thing matters. Everything this year matters. So if he turns the ball over on Wednesday a bunch in training camp, big deal. He makes bad decisions in regular season games and they don't hurt him, big deal. He doesn't deliver with the game on the line, big deal. But I don't think it's worth rehashing what happened last season every single day. And in fairness, and again, trying to be fair here, we didn't rehash all the good things that he did in 2020 when we were upset about what he didn't do in 2021. So that's how I feel here. Your thoughts?
I think it's the same idea as, forgiving but not forgetting with Ryan Tannehill this year. What he did last year no longer matters, but it's still going to be in the back of my mind. I'm still asking myself, is Ryan Tannehill a quarterback that you can rely on?
Are you really asking yourself that question?
Well, but you can look at last year and say, no, he's not a quarterback that you can rely on. He's not a quarterback that's going to at least protect the football enough to not throw the ball away. I don't think we've ever asked Ryan Tannehill for heroics or to be able to put the game on his shoulders week in and week out. That's not the kind of quarterback that Ryan Tannehill is, and we understood that last season. All we ever asked of Ryan Tannehill is, don't throw the ball away. He didn't do that at the end of last season. So if we're going to enter this year giving him a clean slate and, forgiving but not forgetting, I'm going to keep that in mind. that not only are we going into this season saying, hey, Ryan Tannehill's not a guy that you can put the game on his shoulders, but he's at least responsible enough to not throw the game away.
I remember they played the Dolphins last year, and Tannehill played okay, and they crushed the Dolphins. And Kansas City lost to Cincinnati that week, which put the Titans in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed. And I think at that point, all they had to do was beat Houston, and they were the number 1 team. And I remember the Monday, 2 o'clock, the Titans Monday, I remember my reaction to that game, where Tannehill didn't do anything spectacular, but he didn't do anything bad.
And that's all I would ever ask of Ryan Tannehill.
Well, at some point, if you're going to have to go through Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow in 3 consecutive weeks, at some point he's going to have to air the football out. But I would say that I said at 2 o'clock on Titans Monday after the Dolphins game, you are 3 games of him not turning the football over away from the Super Bowl. And I knew it. I was like, if he just doesn't turn the ball over, you're headed to the Super Bowl. Then, when they beat the Texans, I said, if you get this Ryan Tannehill, you're going to win the whole thing. But I'm not so sure you're going to get this Tannehill. And then everybody called in and said, why do you have to be so negative? And then the week of the Bengals game, Gentry Estes told me from the Tennessee that he was driving around the week of the Bengals game, was listening to us, said that we were talking about Tannehill turning the ball over, rolled his eyes, and said, oh, God, not this. And that then he turned around, and after he saw the game, thought to himself, oh, God, they were right. And so, like, I had a pretty good feel for that last year. Mm-hmm. Now, 2021, I thought Tannehill was playing great, and I was very disappointed by that Ravens performance. But all that's in the past right now, and he's the starter, and he deserves a clean slate, and he's getting a clean slate for me. And so, to your point, I think it's very good to say, forgive but don't forget. Mm-hmm. You know, there is no way around it. And whatever Malik does, now I am not expecting in these preseason games for Malik to look like a superstar. But I really have no basis for feeling that way simply because I've never really watched Malik play. If Malik does look like a superstar, your phones are going to be popping. That's what I would say about that.
Well, not just if Malik looks like a superstar, but if he looks like a superstar in the preseason and Tannehill starts to stink it up in the first few weeks of the season, that's when the phones will be hot. That's when you're going to start hearing the Malik Willis chants in the stands.
And the thing about that, the thing that I think's okay about that, and I could be wrong about this, but where I feel like this is okay is I feel like it's okay because you're saying if he stinks it up. Well, that is not part of the clean slate. Like, that would be documented on this season.
That's an if.
No, for sure. I'm saying, but like this season, if he starts to stink it up, it's like, well, I thought you said clean slate. Right, clean slate, and he threw 2 interceptions against the Raiders, and they lost. They lost to the Giants at home. That's how I feel about that. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. The national media groupthink about Indianapolis and Tennessee did not survive one very interesting and maybe very influential ranking. I wonder what we think about this. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company right here on 102.5 The Game. Let me tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys. Hiller does a fantastic job, and they take great care of my home. They can do the exact same thing for you if you've got any problems with those things that I just mentioned. Hiller is celebrating the Home of the Free all July long with special deals for customers. And this month only, take advantage of free whole home surge protection and interest-free financing for 12 months with the purchase of a new whole home generator. They've got a free programmable thermostat and interest-free financing for up to 18 months on select new HVAC units. Free water sensor leak detection and interest-free financing for 12 months when you buy a new tankless water heater. All of these purchases come with a free Happy Hiller Club membership, and I know all about that because I'm a member of the Happy Hiller Club. Their work is backed by the Happy will be your services free guarantee, and all these deals are only happening in July, so customers should call as soon as possible. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, call the Happy Face Truck today.
Join 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and Newton Motor Group this summer to help kids in Middle Tennessee. We're teaming up with Souls for Souls to provide shoes to children experiencing homelessness in Nashville and the surrounding area for back to school. Our goal is to raise $20,000, which will provide 1,000 pairs of shoes for kids. To help, go to thegamenashville.com/shoes. Let's do some good this summer. Newton Motor Group is a proud sponsor of Souls for Music City. Newton Motor Group, the best car deals in Nashville start in Newton. Visit thegamenashville.com/shoes.
A News Nation exclusive. Chris Cuomo in his first TV interview since leaving CNN. Chris Cuomo on Dan Abrams Live. Tomorrow at 9, 8 Central, only on News Nation.
If you suffer from joint pain, from arthritis, or an injury, you know the traditional treatments, pain meds, steroids, and then surgery, right? Willie Donick here with great news. Now there's a better way, and it's here now from the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. This is an advanced, exciting, and natural alternative that can give you lasting relief using your body's own healing power. Listen, steroid shots are toxic to your joints. Pain meds can be addictive, and nobody wants to go under the knife. It's 2022, and those old ways are out. The new way is in. Regenerative medicine, restoring and repairing damaged joint tissue using natural biologics. No drugs, no downtime, no surgery. QC Kinetics and their protocols can address any pain in any joint and give you the quality of life you deserve. So call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics now. 615-249-4024. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024 for QC Kinetics.
If you missed the latest from Stillman and Company, delivered by TriStar Moving.
Yes! Granlund is average. They like him more than everybody else likes him, but he's an average player. Average. And Tolvanen, he popped for about 3 weeks. And outside of those 3 weeks, 5 years of nothing. Yes, there is not a single player on the team that is better than Matthew Tkachuk, except maybe Yossi. That's it. So to sit there and say, and there's going to be a lot of this over the next couple of weeks, unless this thing dies down or Malik Willis goes out and throws for 800 touchdowns, and we're talking about anything else, but there's going to be so much of a, I don't know about giving up Chanot, and I don't know about, like, Tanner Chanot's an average player.
Tune in Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman. Weekday afternoons from 2 to 6.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app. We want to hear from you.
Thanks for taking the call.
Join the conversation. Call or text at 615-737-1025. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Like Jim Irsay said with the reporters in Indianapolis, that he was so upset about how, in his words, you guys had kicked his ass so much, kicked the Colts' ass, that he called a meeting after the second loss, and it's still obviously bothering him if he's still talking about it. How much do you guys focus on them if Indianapolis is so focused on you?
I mean, it's every game in your division is critical. You play them twice. We play them once at their place. Same with the Jaguars and the Texans. It's we know how critical those division games are that, go a long way to determining not only the division championship, but, playoff spots. So every division game is critical.
Every game's critical. By the way, I asked him about Matt Ryan as well. And when I asked him about Matt Ryan, he gave me the most milquetoast response of, well, they have a new quarterback every year we play him. It's I was like, wow. Which he is right.
It was kind of a low-key dig,
well,
but he's not wrong.
I mean, so 2018 they had Andrew Luck, 2019 Brissett, 2020 Rivers, 2021 Wentz, 2022 Matt Ryan.
I mean, it's no secret that the Colts have had a revolving door at quarterback for quite some time. But, I mean, he's not wrong, but it also is a low-key dig.
Now, I do not play video games. I used to when I was a kid. I used to play the football game, and then I would play the baseball game, and then I would play the football game, and then I would play the baseball game. And the only other game I would play is the college football game. Occasionally, I'd play a basketball game or a James Bond game, but for the most part, when I was a kid, I played the football game and then the baseball game. And so I understand how important these Madden ratings are. And they matter to the players because the players all grew up playing Madden football. So the Madden football ratings came out at quarterback. And even though every time you turn on a television, you hear somebody, a talking head on TV, talk about the Indianapolis Colts, and the assumption is that Matt Ryan is a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill, Madden football does not think so. In fact, I think Madden football, outside of their placement of Dak Prescott, I think Madden football has the best quarterback rankings I have ever seen for this season. Brady over Rodgers, which I like, 97 for Brady, 96 for Rodgers. Mahomes, Allen, Burrow. Makes sense to me. Dak at 89 I'm like, no. So take Dak to the side because he doesn't belong there. Herbert, Lamar, Russell, Stafford at 85. So all these people out there that think that Stafford should go right to the Hall of Fame, not at 85. 85's good, but it's not
85 is fine.
Unbelievable. It's not Peyton Manning. Deshaun at 84. I don't know how you judge Deshaun, so I'm okay with that. Kyler at 84. Derek Carr at 83. Tannehill at 83. Matt Ryan at 81. So Madden Football has Tannehill at 83, which I think is probably fair. That's like a B or a B minus, which I think Tannehill probably is. And they've got Matt Ryan at 81, which is a pure B minus. They got Tannehill even with Carr, which
that's fine.
I think is fair. I think one click below Kyler Murray, which honestly I'd rather have Tannehill than Kyler Murray, and you all know how much I hate Kyler Murray. I much rather have Tannehill than Kyler Murray, but I think that's fine. One click.
I just don't want to deal with the boo-hooing of Kyler Murray.
Well,
and the apparent lack of not studying.
I think he's selfish,
pre
lazy,
this new contract.
and I just don't think he's that good. And he's short. But again, one click above Tannehill, fine. Stafford, 2 clicks ahead of Tannehill, fine. Russell and Lamar, legitimately ahead of Tannehill, I agree with. So I think this is the best ranking because I think Brady over Rodgers. Now, again, the Dak Prescott thing, that's a little too much for me. But other than Dak, I think everything is exactly where it should be, and they think Tannehill is better than Matt Ryan. And I don't know how Madden goes about getting their rankings. No respect. May he rest in peace. We know it's not coming from John. And I know they have Ocho Cinco walk around with a Madden ratings evaluator jacket on or whatever. But Ocho Cinco clearly doesn't have a hand in that, or else it's something stupid.
I think that's more of a marketing shtick than it is anything else. Yeah.
So I don't know what it is that Madden Football does that Pro Football Focus analytics don't do, that the quarterback rankings from Mike Sando, where he goes out and talks to 50 coaches, or Jeremy Fowler with his 50 league people, or I don't know how their rankings, I look at them and I'm like, I don't agree with some of this. Whereas I completely, wholeheartedly think that the Madden rankings, they all make sense to me, except for Dak. They all make sense to me. And on top of it, they not only say that, because I think Tannehill and Matt Ryan are probably even, they say Matt Ryan is legitimately below Tannehill. What do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting Madden rankings because this might not be accurate, but I'll tell you how I view it. And that's Madden, I think, is purely from a stat perspective because that's what it is. At the end of the day, that's all Madden is.
It's like running speed, 92.
Yeah, it's very, grade-based. It's very, quantitative. Whereas I look at Mike Sando's list, and I think that's more qualitative, where you get a little bit of human bias of, we were talking about Jimmy Garoppolo versus Ryan Tannehill. Well, he went to a Super Bowl. He took his team to the NFC Championship, and even when he wasn't that great. So that's how I think a lot of coaches, execs, GMs may view it. So I view Madden more as a pure stat, numerical-based ranking. And, if you look at it.
Now, here's what they said 2 days ago. This is from NFL.com.
Okay.
This is how Madden comes up with their rankings. By studying game film, analyzing statistics, pursuing scouting reports, and even reviewing scouting combine performances, the Madden team scores players on dozens of attributes, ultimately coming up with an overall rating on the 0 to 99 scale. Boy, that sounds like a CYAPR statement.
What is CYAPR?
CYAPR.
Oh. I was like, what in the world
Jared's making
is
up his
that?
own analytics over here.
That sounds like when somebody asks you, how did you come up to that? What we did was we took all of our research analysis.
Looked at all of the possible data.
I mean, either Madden just has the best subjective ranking, or there's some mustard that they've got, some secret ingredient that Madden has that they don't want anybody else to know. And they put it in their video game, and their video game rankings for quarterbacks makes all the sense in the world to me.
I think they probably just crunch all the data, all the numbers, all the analytics.
Except Dak Prescott at 89. Dak Prescott 1 click below Joe Burrow. Dak Prescott 1 click above Justin Herbert.
But see, that's the problem.
Get the hell out of here with that.
That's the problem with using strictly quantitative data, which I don't know if that's exactly what Madden does, but let's just go with it, is because sometimes your eyes can tell you a lot more than what analytics can tell you, and that's the Dak Prescott example. Because I think we would all look at Dak and say, not good, not great, but Madden's numbers think that for some reason Dak is great.
I don't think you can have an argument for Dak Prescott over Russell Wilson.
Well, they use speed and awareness.
Those kinds
and
of
arm
stats
strength.
and numbers.
I know.
So if you're talking about speed, Dak is probably
quick.
higher than Joe Burrow, so that's going to tweak his numbers a little bit.
But then how is Dak higher than Russell Wilson?
As far as quarterback attributes, arm strength, speed, that kind of stuff, agility, I'd say they're all very similar. And so it's only
You think Dak's awareness is the same as Russell Wilson?
I'd probably put Wilson's awareness higher, but who's got the stronger arm? Who's faster?
You're measuring all of those attributes.
And when you put those together, I think that, the speed and that's where Matt Ryan probably drops, his arm strength.
And Tannehill has some speed.
And that probably drops, so that tweaks the thing. So, what they look at and what they measure and add in the thing, in the combo, just, is different, I think.
How much do they think Kyler Murray sucks if he is 1 click above Tannehill? And he's got to be rated really, really fast. And he's got a really strong arm.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyler Murray,
but
other than
when you
being
talk about
tall,
awareness,
because tall is not one of the attributes that they have on there, which is probably one of Kyler's biggest knocks. I think Kyler's a phony.
I mean, isn't physicality on Madden?
Strength.
Toughness, is that on there? Tannehill will leap to the
does
top.
have elite
Vrabel probably called
99 on the toughness scale.
Vrabel probably called Mrs. Madden and, wanted to send his condolences and say that Ryan Tannehill deserves a 99 for toughness. All right, put that into the kitty as well. 615-737-1025. I just found that fascinating. In a society where all anybody does is talk about, Matt Ryan, the Colts, Matty Ryan, Matty Ice. As much as they do that, Madden football, that Tannehill's better. Join 1025 1063 The Game and Newton Motor Group this summer to help kids in Middle Tennessee as we team up for Souls for Souls to provide shoes to children experiencing homelessness in Nashville and the surrounding area. With school coming back, we are taking donations to provide kids with shoes for this school year, but we can't do it without you. Please help however you can by going to thegamenashville.com/shoes. All donations will go directly to Souls for Souls to give shoes to children in Middle Tennessee experiencing homelessness. Let's do some good this summer, and thank you for your help. Visit thegamenashville.com/shoes. Newton Motor Group is a proud sponsor of Souls from Music City. Newton Motor Group, the best car deals in Nashville start at Newton.
This is Colton Sissons, and this is Smashville.
Feeds now, Sissons coming onto the left circle, and Colton Sissons puts it in the net.
This is the flagship of the Nashville Predators radio network. ESPN 1025, The Game.
It's the first day of the first grade, and she found a new best friend. It's a laid-back Sunday afternoon, you wish would never end. The homemade taste of Bluebell, and good friends gathered round. The good old days are being made right now.
Some things sound so good, you can almost taste it. Like Bluebell Strawberry Lemonade Ice Cream. Delicious strawberry ice cream swirled with lemonade sherbet and sprinkled with lemon-flavored flakes. It's better than you can imagine.
The good old days are being made right now. The good old days are being made right now.
Look for Bluebell Ice Cream at Chapel's Hometown Foods and Four Corners Grocery in Eagleville.
For the first time in history, the FedEx St. Jude Championship will kick off the FedEx Cup playoffs this August. Bring the whole family out to TPC Southwind August 10th through 14th to watch the PGA Tour's best try to make it through Memphis. Enjoy a variety of family-friendly activities throughout the course, food from local restaurant favorites, and more. Daily grounds and upgraded tickets are available now at FedExChampionship.com.
Hello, Nashville. Looking to save money on your wireless bill?
You can when you choose Consumer Cellular. Sign up today and you'll get the exact same coverage as the leading carriers for half the cost. This gives you direct access to the widest, most established cellular networks available. Consumer Cellular offers flexible monthly plans with no contract and simple, affordable service that's perfect for your lifestyle and budget. Featuring a wide variety of top-of-the-line phones from Samsung, Motorola, and Apple, you'll find a phone that's perfect for you. Everything is backed by a 100% risk-free guarantee, plus 100% U.S.-based award-winning customer support. Switch your talk, text, and data plan before July 31st and get $100 on every new line of service. Right-size your plan and downsize your bill with Consumer Cellular. Visit consumercellular.com/Nashville100 and enter code Nashville100 to start saving today.
Honey, what's an 8-letter word for difficult to explain?
When we planned on retiring, we never planned on Medicare being so confusing.
What's a 6-letter word for special skills or knowledge?
Fortunately, Farm Bureau Health Plans is an expert on all things Medicare. With 75 years of helping Tennesseans, they helped us understand our Medicare options.
Why are these things so complicated?
Talk to your local representative or visit fbhp.com. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Plan on us.
Hey, this is John Hines, and you're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 1025 The Game.
Last season, you had a revolving door at receiver, tight end, throughout training camp, throughout the season. Led to probably your worst season as a Titan. Does that concern you with Traylon's injury and the changeover at wide receiver, that it hasn't been completely consistent as who you'll probably throw to in the games?
I'm not concerned. You have to go out there and make the plays regardless of what's going on. So I'm proud of the guys who have been out there and the progress we've made. Some guys were here last year, but we've had a lot of good reps, and I think we've gotten better, even the guys that were here last year. So excited for the progress we've made and look forward to carrying it in training camp.
Speaking of Traylon Burks, did you hear the report from Diana Rossini over the weekend?
Everything is great. He's in great shape. Never looked better. Really interesting. She said, I've heard. From sources.
If Diana Rossini says that her sources are telling her that Traylon Burks is in shape, then that means, according to the Stillman and Company philosophy, that Mike Vrabel has told Diana Rossini that Traylon Burks is in shape, and Traylon Burks isn't on the PUP list, so that's a good sign. Mm-hmm. What do we make of that? I actually meant to pull that audio, and I just forgot about it, but I mean, we're talking about the Madden rankings. Another Madden ranking that's kind of interesting, by the way, that involves this, because we're talking about Tannehill's ahead of Matt Ryan. Robert Woods is an 86. A.J. Brown's an 87. So Madden is telling you that the difference between Brown and Woods is not that big. Not sure I totally agree with that, but that's what Madden says. And then Diana Rossini, the official spokesperson for Mike Vrabel, Diana Rossini tells us that Traylon Burks is in shape. He lost the weight. He's ready to go. So Mike Vrabel is telling Diana, who's telling us that, and he's on the PUP list. So Burks should be out there, and Madden thinks that Robert Woods is as good as A.J. Brown.
Well, in the Burks thing, I'll believe it when I see it, because hearing Diana Rossini say that and also listening to it through the ears of, I know this is coming from Mike Vrabel, it didn't mean much to me.
Oh, it didn't? It was a big deal to me.
You believe it? I don't.
Oh, I do.
I don't.
I don't think Vrabel's – I mean, I should have gotten the audio for this, and I'm sorry that I didn't. But
because what is Mike Vrabel going to say? Actually, no, he's not in good shape. He's not ready to go.
No, so Diana Rossini was like, I mean, this is a team that never shares anything. And the Titans, you know, for the people that I've talked to, and, you know, they've told – and some lower-level people too. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Sure.
Lower-level people. But the way she made it sound to me was the Titans never tell me anything, and the Titans, Vrabel, we assume, Vrabel is he never tells me anything, and he's telling me that Burks is in great shape and he's ready to go.
Of course he's telling her that.
Vrabel doesn't say stuff like that. If it's not true, he just doesn't say anything.
The same source that told Diana Rossini that they had no interest in trading A.J. Brown.
They weren't even taking calls.
They weren't taking calls on A.J. Brown.
According to Diana.
So whatever narrative wants to be put out there from the Titans, it'll be put out there, whether it's the truth or not.
So you don't buy it?
No. I'll believe it when I see it.
Wednesday, Traylon Burks, full practice, yes or no?
I mean, I have no reason to believe that he will be full practice other than Diana Rossini's bloviating from the desk of Mike Vrabel.
And he's not on the PUP list.
I'll just go ahead and say yes. I'll go ahead and say yes. He's a full go.
Okay,
But I'll
so
believe it when I see it.
Shouldn't that make everybody feel better? Again, Madden Football says that Robert Woods is the same as A.J. Brown, essentially. And then you're adding a healthy Traylon Burks into the mix because we thought that Traylon Burks was supposed to replace A.J. Brown. But if Traylon Burks only has to replace Julio Jones, I feel pretty good about Traylon Burks' chances of doing that if he can make it through one full practice, which the unofficial spokesperson for Mike Vrabel is telling us.
Well, I talked to some people at SEC Media Days about Traylon Burks, some Arkansas people, and my consensus was he tends to, quote, start slow, that he needs a few weeks.
So
and I said, can you afford
do they
to
need
start
to put
slow in the
a
NFL?
4-hour independent study clause into his contract?
In the independent study is what?
Linda Dillon at Orange Theory in Green Hills need to get with him. Coach Linda will get him right.
Here's my thing with Traylon Burks. Everything that we've seen from him has been negative. Mike Vrabel says he's a good. Diana Rossini
4 hours.
says
4 hours at Orange Theory a week for Traylon Burks. He can go the same time Derek goes.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Let's go to
That's
your
all I have to
phones.
say.
Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. By the way, 102.5, 106.3 The Game is bringing you Nashville's best coverage of Titans Camp, presented by USA Hemp Store and Parman Energy, your one-stop petroleum shop. Is USA Hemp Store, is that one of those like legal weederys that we got around here now?
That sounds like it. I don't believe it's a weedery per se, but hemp shop sounds like it.
So Ian has the audio from Diana. This was the Athletics Football Show. This is what Diana Rossini said about Traylon Burks.
Everything I've heard since then has been awesome. I've heard he's in shape. I've heard he's lost weight. I've heard there's been so much growth already. And this is an organization that doesn't like to share, I don't want to say it doesn't like to share positive stuff, but they're not quick to go there. And the stuff I've been getting from some people, some low-level people too as well, like, he's working out tons, he dropped the weight, he's good to go. So I think heading into camp, this is a really good first step, considering I thought that was going to be an absolute disaster.
I've talked to some low-level people too.
Everything is awesome. Everything's
Okay.
amazing. Everything is great.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Do you think Diana Rossini actually thought it was going to be a disaster?
Do you think Diana Rossini actually talked to low-level people?
No.
No!
No.
What do we have in the text line?
Indy Ben texts in and says, I'd take more stock on what NFL GMs and coaches think versus what Madden thinks on QB ratings. Ryan could easily have a Rivers-like effect on the Colts this year, and I would argue a better version of that due to Ryan being 3 years younger than what Phillip was.
All right. Let's pull up what these in the Athletic, let's pull up what they said, these coaches and general managers said about Matt Ryan, because other than the fact that he ranked ahead of Tannehill, we haven't actually talked about what they said. Quote, here you go, GM. I thought he would do well in Atlanta with Arthur Smith managing the game like he did for Ryan Tannehill. He is definitely on the decline arm strength-wise. Doesn't sound like this general manager's feeling good about Matt Ryan
It's not
in
glowing.
relation to Tannehill. I still think he can play, an evaluator said. If you give him the run game and protect him, especially if you can protect him up the middle, he can throw it well enough and he's smart enough to keep the train going. With those guys, I think he's got a great chance. With the Falcons, he just didn't have any help, a former general manager said. I'm not saying he's the same guy who won the MVP, but I'm saying if you protect him and you can run the ball, he will get the ball to the right guy. I mean, they say this didn't have any help. I didn't watch the Falcons, but he had Kyle Pitts. He had Russell Gage. There's
Ridley Patterson, who was a freaking dog that year.
But he played mostly running back. And I think they had Mike Davis as their other running back. They didn't have any wide receivers.
I felt bad.
It was like the Jets game for the Titans every week.
I felt bad for her.
Why do I think Kyle Pitts didn't really do much last year?
Oh, I thought Kyle Pitts
He
apparently
didn't
lit it
really
up.
do-
Oh, I thought he
didn't-
lit it up.
I didn't think he did that great.
Let me
Wasn't
tell you,
he a
I didn't watch
rookie
a
last year?
single Atlanta Falcons game. I should not be running my mouth in this discussion.
I don't think he did. I don't know if he was injured or
Wasn't
if
he?
just wasn't.
Last year was his rookie year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a tight end, it takes longer,
Mhm.
and he was, they were putting him outside, using him as like a wide receiver at times because they didn't have
they would
anybody
have
else.
to, right.
Yeah. Especially without Ridley, they were counting on him.
What do we have in the text line?
Another texter texts in and says, if you're looking at Madden, then go look at Bud Dupree and David Long's overall. It's ridiculous. I can't believe them.
Okay, so here's my thing on Madden football. Number one, I don't play the video game. I haven't played the video game in probably a decade, except for when one of my friends' 8-year-olds wanted to play me in Madden, and I kicked the crap out of my friend's 8-year-old. It took me one quarter.
Nice.
It took me one quarter to like get used to it. And like, now it's like the Xbox 900. So I don't, it's like all these things or whatever. And so it took me a while to get used to like the controls. And then once I got used to it for a quarter, I freaking smoked my friend's 8-year-old.
Overcame adversity and beat an 8-year-old.
Look, I didn't want to play. And it just kept, let's play,
against your will.
Let's play. So finally I was like, all right, fine. If you want to play, we're going to play. And I smoked him. But I'll say this. Quarterbacks are one thing that I do feel like Madden football has to take more seriously than middle linebackers. Like, if they have a 20-team group that focuses on ratings, what do you think the number one discussion that they talk about?
Quarterbacks.
Of course. The second thing about the Madden football ratings that I would go with is I agree with this list, and that's why it makes the most sense to me. Because almost everything except for Dak Prescott's placement on that list makes sense to me. Dak Prescott's rate? I don't. The Dak Prescott. 89 for Dak Prescott, 88 for Justin Herbert. If we were to pull all 32 general managers, including Jerry, and we were to say Dak Prescott or Justin Herbert, am I crazy for thinking it would be 32-0?
Yes, I absolutely think Jerry would take his guy over Justin Herbert, but I think he would be the only one.
Oh, my God. I think Jerry would be.
No, I think you're giving Jerry too much credit.
I love you, Dak. I love you. I want you.
That's our guy.
I love Justin
Dak is
Herbert.
our guy. We believe with him.
Or maybe Chris
Greer. Take
Greer.
him over any other quarterback in this league.
Chris Greer, the guy who drafted Tua ahead of Justin Herbert. Maybe he would take Dak over Herbert. What else we got?
Another texter checks in and says, I don't believe with the Madden rating on Derrick Henry. He needs to be in the 99 club.
Isn't he a 98?
I have no idea.
Okay, here's the thing about the Madden ratings. I don't care about any of the other Madden ratings except for the quarterback.
And that's another thing
the
with the Madden ratings.
The A.J. Brown and Robert Woods, because I found that to be kind of interesting. Yeah.
Well, another thing with Madden ratings is, like, over the weekend, all I saw was so much complaining about where Jamar Chase was ranked or his ranking or whatever it was.
Follow too many LSU Bobos.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, who do you expect me to follow?
College Town, College Media, Boboville. It's like when I listened to you guys at SEC Media Days, and who was it? It was Peter Burns was like, well, the SEC is already a super conference anyways. I was like, did the commissioner hand that out on a cue card and hand that to every single person that goes on to talk about the league? Hey, we're already a super conference because I heard the commissioner say it. Then immediately Peter Burns sits down with you and goes, well, the SEC is already a super conference. Like, oh, I didn't get the packet that has all the talking points for this week. Could you hand me that packet? Because that's what I felt like that was. Bo.
Can I continue?
Jamar Chase is ranked too low.
I didn't say it. I'm just saying
according
that's
to the
what I saw
LSU
on Twitter.
Bobos.
But if I may continue, everyone's all worked up over Madden ratings because that's all we have. As soon as training camp starts, as soon as the season starts, nobody's going to give a single care about Madden ratings.
So I heard McAfee today, and he opened the show talking about, they're in training camps, and football is here, and this week has started, and we finally made it, and everyone starts clapping or whatever.
Yeah.
McAfee goes, all those things we talked about for the last 9 months don't mean
It
a
doesn't
damn
matter.
thing anymore.
None of it matters.
Here we go. And there is a little bit of truth in that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. I have a Preds take because they lost out on Matthew Tkachuk. I have a quick Preds take, and then we're right back to your phones. And again, Hutton, Kaharski, and Withrow will join us at 5 o'clock to talk about Mark Howard. That's next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
It's training time for the Two-Tone Blue, and we have you covered. Talking Titans? Join us live from training camp for interviews and reports, giving you the latest on the Titans.
There's a lot of guys that are making an impact on me, both good and bad.
I like some of the depth. I think that's the key right now.
Training camp coverage is fueled by Parman Energy. Visit ParmanEnergy.com, your one-stop petroleum solution, and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
From the Fox 17 News Code Red Weather Center.
Scattered storms will be around for the remainder of the evening hours. We're looking at an unsettled pattern for much of the week. Heavy pockets of rain off and on throughout the afternoons. Highs expected in the low 90s. For Fox 17, I'm Chief Meteorologist Katie Morgan.
This weather report brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
A News Nation exclusive. Chris Cuomo in his first TV interview since leaving CNN. Chris Cuomo on Dan Abrams Live. Tomorrow at 9, 8 Central, only on News Nation.
Hi guys, it's Andrew with Hillside Medical Clinic. Is erectile dysfunction damaging your relationship? Are you sick of the pill and all the side effects? Well, welcome to the future. We have a major medical breakthrough. Hillside Medical Clinic uses the most advanced form of wave therapy. Backed by 60 clinical studies, our technology uses pressure waves to repair and open up blood vessels. We've helped countless men get rid of their ED. But what is the true end result? Their relationship, even their lives, improve drastically. If you're ready to regain your love life, call us right now, and not only will the assessment and ultrasound be free, we'll also give you a gift that produces immediate results in the bedroom. It almost never fails. This is worth $550, and it's free to callers right now. 615-576-5000. That's 615-576-5000. Put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and experience what I call the happiness ripple effect. Call Hillside Medical Clinic now, 615-576-5000.
This is Ryan Burke, marketing consultant with Cromwell Media. Like many of you, I'm new to town. I relocated here last year and started my career at Cromwell Media. Every day is different in this role. You meet and learn about so many types of businesses and work alongside the likes of the Nashville Predators and Nashville Sounds. Plus, you get the opportunity to be a part of so many big events in town. Are you looking for a little excitement in your career? Come on, have some fun working in media advertising at Cromwell Media. Email us at together@cromwellmedia.com. That's together@cromwellmedia.com.
Hey, it's Jared. If you're listening to us on I-24 towards Murfreesboro or I-65 towards Spring Hill, make sure you check out 106.3 for another great way to hear Nashville's best sports talk.
Join MTSU head football coach Rick Stockstill and the Blue Raiders as they hit the street for the Blue Raider Blitz Caravan across the mid-state. Each stop will feature free food, giveaways, and a chance to hear from Coach Stockstill on the upcoming Middle Tennessee football season. To see when the caravan is in your town, head to mtalumni.com/blitz to register to attend. That's mtalumni.com/blitz.
Robbie Stanley.
They get a lead in that game and just totally close the door.
Joe Rexrode.
If he plays next year, it's disastrous.
Robbie and Rexrode. Mornings from 6 to 10 on Nashville's best sports talk. ESPN 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Presented by TriStar Moving.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
He was on everybody's radar, so of course he was on our radar. But what happened in this, which has not really been talked about, is that he chose where to go and play, meaning he picked 3 or 4 teams. I think that was the most, and that's all his agent would give Calgary. So when I called Calgary, he told me that he would have loved to have more teams and he'd love to talk to me about it, but why waste his time where the player was not going to go to that team? So that's how it played out.
Okay, so you guys weren't on that list then.
We were not on that list.
There you go. That was David Poyle at the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame event. And considering that I spent 3 hours talking about how the Predators have to go get Matthew Tkachuk, David has to do whatever it takes to get Tkachuk. Tkachuk wants to come here because Jeremy Rutherford had reported that. They got to go get him. They got to do it. Friday night, when Jonathan Huberdeau got traded for Matthew Tkachuk, I literally said to myself, well, I mean, they never really had a chance anyways. Like, even they could have offered any player on the team, and it would not have matched the offer that they got from the Florida Panthers in order to trade Matthew Tkachuk. So, really can't be mad at David in that regard. I thought I was going to be mad at the Predators because I thought the Predators were going to purposely not go after Tkachuk. That they were going to be like, oh, no, we can't afford it. We can't trade away Philip Tomasino. I mean, good God, how could we ever? And that was going to drive me insane. But then when I saw what Tkachuk went for, I was like, well, the Predators would never have been able to do that. And then to hear David say, we called Calgary, and Calgary said, I'd love to talk to you, but you're not on his list, which, muddies the waters with the reporting that we heard that they were on the list. Then not only do I have to not blame David for not going after Tkachuk, because he did go after Tkachuk, but I almost have to give David credit for seeing the same thing that I saw on Friday and was screaming about, which is I think the Predators have a team that can almost win right now. I don't think they have a team that can win. And if you add a star like Tkachuk on there, then you can win. The problem is how hard is it to get a star player on your team when one comes available via trade? You have to trade an MVP candidate in order to get him. And that's exactly what the Florida Panthers did. I mean, I thought it was a crazy trade. I mean, if I had a Jonathan
Calgary
Huberdeau,
got a haul in return.
If I had a Jonathan Huberdeau, I'm not sure I would have made that trade. But they did, and they gave up the defenseman, too, who I think's pretty good. So
pretty solid, yeah. Uyghur.
Solid defenseman. Mm-hmm. So the Predators were not on the list, so the Predators could have never gotten him. And not only that, the Predators did try to get them, so I have to give David credit there. So David's in the clear on the Tkachuk thing, and I don't have to yell and scream about it. So that was my quick little Preds thought. You have something to add on that?
Well, and I did have a little bit of a fear about the Matthew Tkachuk thing after hearing David Poile say that Ryan McDonough just fell into their laps. And my fear was, so are you just not going to go out and be aggressive about finding these players? Are the only players that you're going to sign this offseason going to be because they just fell into your lap? And a Matthew Tkachuk does not fall into your lap. You have to actively go out to try and sign a Matthew Tkachuk. So to your point about David Poile at least calling.
They called.
And picking up the phone and doing their due diligence. That eased my fear a little bit.
They
At
called.
least they tried.
It's how I feel as like an Orlando Magic fan, which is I'd love to have Kevin Durant. The problem is that Kevin Durant doesn't want to play for the Orlando Magic. Like they don't want to come there. So if they don't want to, what are you going to do? And that's what happened with Tkachuk. And we were led to believe another thing. The Athletic had reported that the Predators were on the list. Mm-hmm. And it was another thing to say, oh, well, he would rather go to St. Louis than go to Nashville. Or, this one team that he wants to go to has something better to give, which it was reported that he did want to go to Florida. And Florida did have more to give because clearly they did give more than the Predators could have offered. But, I mean, the Predators were not even under consideration. So not only can I not be mad at the Predators, I also have to give them credit because they did call. So good job. Back to your phone, 615-737-1025. Again, Hutton, Kaharski, and Withrow going to join us at 5 o'clock on Mark Howard, our late friend. Let's go to your phones. What do we have?
One texter checks in and says, in reference to the Tkachuk thing, do you think the Predators could have been a Stanley Cup contender with Tkachuk?
Yes. I spent all day Friday talking about that. You two were on vacation, so both of you missed it. But yes, me and Adam Vingan spent all day on Friday talking about how if you add Matthew Tkachuk, which, by the way, I figured out how to use the text line on Friday.
Welcome to the text line.
Well, so for some reason, I hadn't even thought about it. And so it's the first segment. Adam Vingan was in, and I was just like, 615-737-1025. And then I realized in that moment that I didn't know how to use the text line. And I'm like, well, I can go to your phones, but I don't know how to go to the text line. So I texted Max, and I asked Max, how do I get into the text line? And Max sent me an email, and it was almost like when I was able to get into the text line, it was like, yes!
I did tune in intermittently on Friday, and I clicked in, and you said, well, now that I'm new to the text line, I just learned how to get to the text line. Look at your phones coming up next. And I thought, wow, welcome in.
It really went out of my comfort zone. When did we switch the text message service? Was Ryan still our program director when we switched the text service?
This was, I think, a few months ago. Springtime, March, April.
I don't know. What's next?
Another texter texts in and says, you cannot compare Johnny Smith's production from last year. Johnny was a baller and Ryan loved him.
Johnny Smith was not a baller. He didn't have 500 yards. He was a solid player. A solid player. But boy, they did not use him in New England, and they got nothing. I spent an hour and a half yesterday talking about Belichick. I think Belichick's the most fascinating thing with training camp this year. No offensive coordinator, no defensive coordinator. Joe Judge and Matt Patricia coaching the offensive side of the ball. His kid and Gerard Mayo coaching the defensive side of the ball. He's got a second-year quarterback. This isn't like Brady's there, and Brady can herd the goats. I mean, they need a coach on the offensive side of the ball. Supposedly, it might be Bill calling the plays this year on offense. And they got a young quarterback, no receivers, and the Patriots have one top 10 player. You know that Jeremy Fowler set of lists, the top 10 at every position? One top 10 player in the NFL. It's Hunter Henry, who's the 10th best tight end. So they have one guy, and he's 10th. And they got a second-year quarterback, and they have no offensive coach for the second-year quarterback unless it ends up being Joe Judge. I mean, for anybody else, and I'd be like, this is going to be an unmitigated disaster. Belichick, I'm like, hey, Brady did his thing. Now, you got to eventually do your thing, or else we're going to say, everything he did with Brady. Now, the football people get all mad anytime you say that because they're like, well, I mean, Brady needed Belichick too. I'm like, not in Tampa. He didn't. What else we got?
Jonathan texts in and says, should lose to the Raiders, LOL. That is the hottest of a hot take so far.
Who said they should lose to the Raiders?
I did.
Why do you think they should lose to the Raiders?
Well, I put it in, I didn't know that we were doing toss-ups, and that was one of my toss-up games, and I gave all of my toss-up games equal should lose and should wins, but I don't think we're giving the Raiders enough credit.
But a should lose?
But that's not as bad as a will lose.
Yeah, but will lose. I only have one will lose on the road on Thursday night at the Packers.
I have 2 Bills and Packers. But I look at the Raiders game, and that isn't it's more of a toss-up game than it is a should lose game. But
what percent chance?
But the Raiders went 10-7 last year
with no coach.
And their wide receiver got arrested and killed a person in the middle of the season.
And they replaced him with Devontae Adams.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not giving the Raiders enough credit.
Titans Raiders at Nissan Stadium right now, and remember, this is a West Coast team playing a noon kickoff.
Mm-hmm.
Titans Raiders right now. What percentage would you give the Titans to win? So 50's even.
I would say 35-40.
So you think a less than even chance to win against the Raiders?
Yeah.
At home?
Yeah.
Ian?
I don't know. Early in the season's going to be a detriment to them just because of the new coaching staff.
Sure.
That's fair.
I mean, Devonta Adams and Derek Carr already have built-in chemistry. But with the new McDaniel and the whole thing, I'll give the Titans 60%.
Yeah, I think that's where I am. I even wrote in my little notes, I'm uneasy about the Raider game, and I did not say that I'm uneasy at home against Denver, which I thought that they should win. And I have a lot of respect for the Raiders, but nah.
I don't think that's a hot take.
35%?
40. I said 35-40.
Oh, goodness.
But I don't understand how you can add a Devontae Adams and not give that team at least a little bit of respect.
No, nobody ever talks about the Raiders at all.
Nobody gives enough. The
Raiders were a goal line stand. Deshaun Jackson dropped a touchdown. The Raiders were right there with the Bengals. The Raiders were as close to beating the Bengals as you were to beating the Bengals. And they were on the road.
With a competent coach.
And Carr.
With an upgraded wide receiver.
I like Carr. Even though the numbers don't love Carr, I like Carr. So make of that what you will. I still should lose the Raiders 35%. Then again, you said 35-40, so we can go with 40.
Let's go with 40.
Should lose to the Raiders. That is.
You said it was a toss-up game, so how we?
No, I said should win, but I'm uneasy.
So you're uneasy about it?
Yeah, when Ian said 60%, I think that's probably about right.
Okay, fair.
60%.
I don't think that's the hottest take in the world to say that the Raiders are a good team.
Our old friend Mark Howard passed away yesterday unexpectedly at the age of 65 years old. Both Caroline and I just absolutely gutted about Mark's passing. And now I've heard a lot of people say a lot of great things about Mark Howard. I knew Mark as a fan. I finally, worked with Mark for about a year on and off. Got to know Mark, really, really liked Mark. Jonathan Hutton, Chad Withrow, and Paul Kaharski saw Mark Howard every day for a decade. All three of them will join us next to remember Mark Howard. We'll do that, Stillman and Company, right here on 102.5 The Game.
Your speaker at home is so smart that even Alexa knows where to find Nashville's best sports talk.
102.5 The Game is Nashville's best sports talk.
Ask Alexa to enable 102.5 The Game. Once enabled, ask Alexa to play 102.5 The Game.
Welcome to 102.5 The Game.
We are Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
I'm Joe Namath, here to tell you about another number 12. USA Hemp Store's original number 12. USA Hemp Store cream is hypoallergenic and uses an easy-to-apply blend of ingredients designed to go on gently. And with no odor, no one knows you've got it on, except you, of course.
The original number 12 CBD creams, grown in the USA, THC-free, lab-tested. And a portion of every sale supports Homes for Veterans Incorporated.
USA Hemp Store's original number 12 works like it does for me.
With this special Joe Namath offer, get the original number 12 just $34.95. Free shipping on every order. Distributorships available. Call to learn more. 844-305-1212. 844-305-1212. Or visit usahempstore.com. usahempstore.com. THC free is the low level of detection using validated scientific methods. Alexa Labs June 2022 certification analysis. USA Hemp Store is not making any guarantees about the results of taking any action, whether recommended in this advertisement or not. USA Hemp Store is not making any guarantees nor any endorsements concerning any of its products. Paid endorsement.
In St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida, every day is a beach day. And with 35 miles of pristine, sugary white sand, it's easy to see why. So let's grab the beach bag, the beach ball, and the boogie board. Let's pack the suits, the sunscreen, and the sunglasses. Take a dip in the emerald green waters of the Gulf. And then take in a breathtaking sunset at the end of the day. So let's make a beeline to the beach. And let's shine. Plan your next getaway at visitstpeteclearwater.com.
Ever tried to shop for a diamond online? They all look great on the computer screen, but the fact is, most reputable jewelers like Genesis Diamonds wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole.
These are the diamonds that nobody wants to buy. We call them the B-quality diamonds.
That's Genesis owner Boaz Ramon, who says that even diamonds with the same grade and specs on paper can be very different when you see them up close in person, especially the ones from online dealers.
Those diamonds gonna look always cloudy or dirty. It's like you're wearing your glasses and there is fingerprints all over the glass. You just don't understand, or nobody told you that the material that this diamond was cut from was not the best material.
Why risk it? At Genesis Diamonds, they screen thousands of diamonds and only choose the best of the best for maximum brilliance, sparkle, and luster. Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
I'm Boaz Ramon, and my accent is always on value.
From the Hillside Medical Game Studios, WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne.
Chase Elliott scores the win in the Ally 400 at the Nashville Super Speedway.
Nashville's exclusive home for NASCAR. 102.5 and 106.3.
Terang, it's a high fly ball.
We got pass rushers.
Awesome game.
Checkered flag in the air.
The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Where you have a voice.
We're one play away from an injury.
He knows this. He's a study of the game.
And we have strong opinions.
He's been awful. I don't think they were trying, and that's why I feel the way I feel.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman and Caroline Fenton. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry, live from the Hillside Medical Game Studios. And yesterday, I know I was not alone in this, but when Chase McCabe texted me that our friend Mark Howard, who had spent the last year doing Titans pregame shows with us, doing our NFL draft coverage with us, that our friend Mark Howard had passed away, it absolutely was a shot right to the gut for me. I know it was a shot right to the gut for you. I mean, this morning, listening to different people, listening to everybody around town, whether they were in the media or they were a listener or a caller or whatever it may be, talk about Mark Howard. It really made me feel better about something that I feel so awful about. And so with that, you know, it's weird for me because Mark Howard was on TV when I was a kid. And then I remember driving my dad's minivan, no disrespect to minivans, but my dad's minivan, I remember driving when I was 14 years old or 15 years old, not 14, 15 years old with a learner's permit. So I was like learning how to drive. And I remember driving to school listening to the Wake Up Zone. And Frank and Mark would get into it, and I loved every second of it. And so I was a fan. I saw Mark on TV as a child. And then after Mark and 104.5 separated, you know, he had to wait out his non-compete. But as soon as his non-compete was up and he was able to work with us, I remember telling Ryan, we have got to get Mark Howard on the draft coverage. And the 3 days or 2 days or whatever that we did with Mark Howard, with Mark and TD and Chris Sanders, was some of the most fun that I had ever had doing the radio. And last year we had a spot on our pregame show, and I remember we absolutely had to go get Mark Howard. And I learned a lot about life just shooting the breeze with Mark Howard, and I only spent a year with him. Jonathan Hutton, Chad Withrow, and Paul Kaharski saw Mark Howard every day for 10 years. You guys have traveled with Mark Howard. You guys have worked with Mark Howard before you guys were together on Midday 180. Paul, you would do the mornings, all the time on the Wake Up Zone. So I know how gutted we were yesterday when we heard the news about Mark. How did it affect you? How did it hit you guys? First of all, thank you for joining us, all three of you. I wish it were under better circumstances. But just your feelings. Paul, you wrote a great column, by the way, on Mark as well over the last 24 hours thinking about our friend Mark Howard.
Well, Jared, that's what I tend to do in such circumstances. I got word from a mutual friend and talked to my wife, sent a note to some of these guys, and pretty quickly sat down and wrote because I figured that'd be cathartic for me, and people would be curious to hear some memories once they came to terms with the news. I haven't been in great touch with Mark since he's been unfortunately out of the business, but we did share occasional texts, and so I kind of shared some of the information about that. But somebody today sent me a picture from way back when we broadcast at the Zone from a downtown studio with me just laughing hysterically and Mark in the background doing so. And as I wrote, I pulled into the Zone studio those 3 mornings a week when I was doing an hour with the Wake Up Zone, just crackling with excitement because I knew that Kevin, Mark, Frank, and I were going to have something big, and we were going to get into something. And from item 0 on his list to the walk-off, which I think ranks as a famous sports talk moment, where he thought he was going to walk a former Pro Bowl tight end into the ground because he had gotten a little bit fit. Were just classic moments.
It also tells you what he thought about Frank.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Mark was getting fit and Frank was getting unfit, but this was not two ships passing in the night where they
different directions. Yeah, in different directions.
They had not passed each other on that voyage.
Jared, I immediately thought of the different stages of my career and how I can link Mark Howard to practically all of them, quite frankly. I mean, when I first started as an intern with Titans Radio, Mark was hosting the pre- and post-game show, Titans Talkback, with Peter Sermon and Kevin Dyson at the time. And I was helping produce copy there. I ended up doing scoreboards there with him. I met his son Jack for the first time, who was probably 5, 6, 7 years old. And how I would figure out what Jack wanted. Mark was Jewish, but he wanted to know what Jack wanted for Christmas. So I would go figure out what Jack wanted as a gift, report back to Mark, and I told Jack, like, by the way, whatever you tell me, you're going to get. So what do you want?
Green room sessions.
Yeah, from that to I traveled with him in the AFL and the Arena Football League, the 2 games that Mike Keith didn't call. I forget what came up, but he could not make the Texas road trip. So I traveled Southwest with Mark Howard, and the man, to this day, he falls asleep faster than any human I've ever been around on a flight. And just the generosity that he would give, not just to me, but anybody that was trying to make pave a path in the business, to teaching me the right way to go about being prepared. There was no one that I came across that was more prepared for any topic than Mark Howard, from hockey to football to badminton or the Olympics. Like, the guy could just recite stat after stat, and if he couldn't remember it, he had 45 pages of notes in front of him where he had killed the tree the night before in order to get the show prepared. The guy lived it, and outside and from beyond just the microphone, he was an excellent father for Jack.
Yeah, I was around him the least of the three of us, and you can really, the longer you're in this business, you can tell people who really, really like sports and love it and live it from those who don't. Mark Howard loved it.
Yes.
I mean, that's what he knew. He watched it. He read about it. He thought about it when he wasn't thinking about it. He studied it. And that really came across, whether he was on Channel 5, whether he was on local radio, wherever he was, that always came across to me. Again, I had the least amount of interaction, but I just remember being a little bit intimidated of Mark when I started out because he was the guy I saw more than anyone else, more than Frank Wycheck. I watch Titans games once a week during the fall. Yeah, I saw Frank Wycheck, once a week on Titans games, but Mark Howard was in my living room all the time growing up on Channel 5. So he was kind of this larger-than-life figure when I first met him. So that's the guy I remember when I first started working in local radio being most intimidated of, because I had seen him more. Jared, I saw you tweet about it also. You grew up watching him on TV, then listening to him, and then eventually working with him. That was my experience as well.
Jared, I talked a little bit online to his brother who reached out to me. There'll be a public memorial in a month or 6 weeks here in Nashville.
I do wonder for you guys when it comes to Mark. One thing that I realized in the year that we would do pregame shows or he would fill in or whatever it would be was I felt like the Mark on the radio was the Mark in real life. And that everything about him was authentic, even the way that he would cut callers off and yell in arguments. I mean, Chris Sanders would say some crazy stuff, and Mark Howard would just let Chris have it. And I loved that about him. I loved how he would, really get into it with the callers on Titans postgame shows. What about his personality do you guys remember the most?
Jared, I know this is hard for you to understand, but Mark Howard, Chad Withrow, Jonathan Hunt, and Paul Kuharsky, we are all the same guys on the air that we are in real life. You're the exception being an actor.
Oh, I think I'm 100% the same guy.
No. So, Mark was great at being himself on the air, and we all fell in line with that. But I think you think there are a lot more people playing a character on Nashville radio than there really are.
Oh,
Mark was authentic.
But there are people playing characters all over the place.
There absolutely are.
In sports talk radio.
And
so
Jared,
a
great example.
Authentic and organic.
A great example, whenever I'm screening calls for Titans Talkback, which is still to this day, I would go and screen calls immediately, like right now, if the Titans just lost a game to the Chicago Bears, for instance, and Mark was having to field phone calls on it immediately for the reaction to Mark. But what we would do, we would have fun games behind the scenes. If he got into an argument with Peter Sermon or with Blaine or with Dice, and all the calls we were taking, they would agree with the players. And we would have a batch of phone calls, 8 of them, all the lines full, even the hotlines that people had the number to. And the subject line, if I wanted a caller who was going to call in and just bash Mark, because I knew it was going to be great radio, in the subject line, I would say, loves Mark's opinion on this. And Mark, I would go in and tell everyone, he's going to go to Brian on line 4 first, even though others have been on hold the longest, because Mark saw that he was going to have somebody who agreed with him. And then Mark would put the ball on the tee, and this guy would just come in hot after Mark, and they would get into it. It was great radio. But Mark was authentic. You didn't always agree with what he was doing or how he went about things, but you respected the opinion and the background and the study he put into it because you knew he was prepared to talk on the subject. And I think that's the key. As long as you're prepared and you know what you're discussing, the audience is going to respect that, and they certainly did with Mark Howard.
I feel like all three of you have had incredibly successful careers, even as much as that pains me to say about Paul. But I will ask this question, which is, what did Mark Howard do for each of you in terms of your career and your life?
Well, he kept me going, right? He would give me advice along the way. And sometimes advice that I needed to hear on, some interviews that I would do at Super Bowl Radio Row, I'd get back and think they were cool, and Mark would, pick it apart for me. From that to just the preparation side of things behind the scenes, calling. We did a high school game of the week together one year where we were paired together. That was a blast. He was going to be as prepared for on any level, whether it was a high school game, to calling a game for the TSSAA championship, to hosting the morning show, which was his show. When you come up with the topics and the guest list and everything that Paul Bible and Brandon Hagany were doing, they were going through Mark to make sure the show lined up the proper way. To being ready for the Preds broadcast or the Titans broadcast, he put everything into it. And he didn't take the listeners for granted who were going to be tuning in no matter how little or how much to a certain broadcast. He was going to make sure that he was prepared to speak on that certain topic or issue of the day, and he was not afraid to discuss or ask the tough questions to the guests that would come on that he had a great relationship with, that he has built over the years through that consistency. And I think that's a great quality to mention with Mark. He was extremely consistent no matter what he was doing in the professional line of work that he was working on on the time.
Yeah, the best thing he did for me was he didn't think that I sucked early on, I think. I mean, he paid me enough respect that I remember going to different places and covering Tennessee in the NCAA basketball tournament, and I'd go on the different shows, and they would have me on Wake Up Zone, and Mark would come in prepared, like we're talking about. He'd have notes upon notes, and he'd have a very long question set up, but he treated me like any other reporter or anyone else that would go to a game or be covering something and would ask questions about Tennessee or who they were playing or whatever it may be. And you better believe I was prepared for whatever question Mark Howard was going to ask me, but it would have been easy for someone in his position to think, I'm not interviewing this kid fresh out of college that's there to report on a team that I probably know more about, or at least I think I know more about than he does. So the fact that he treated me with that respect, and it was someone that I looked up to in the business, I think really helped me early on in the profession.
He and Frank were really running the show there as the Wake Up Zone started, and they gave me, a big megaphone and a lot of opportunity early in my career. I'm a newspaper guy at heart, but to them I was a newspaper guy that translated to radio. And Mark taught me that easy, regular conversations among friends, laughing together, made for good radio. And to be willing to be the butt of the joke, which he was, I think, fortunately for me, a little more often than I was. But we all took our turns, and that made it incredibly fun.
When you guys think about legacy that's left between television and radio and how he did it at such a high level for so long, what do you think the legacy that Mark Howard leaves as a sportscaster in Nashville is?
I think it's really big. I mean, I thought it was really big, and then I've seen the response, Jared, on the piece that I wrote and on Twitter, and it is just remarkable how many people are pointing to specific elements of the radio that happened when I was on his show, and just to him in general about this guy got me through so many of my drives from Rutherford County to work. This guy was the voice of my childhood drives to school, and on and on. Hundreds of comments like that I'm sure are representative of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of people, emotions in and around Middle Tennessee. It's one of the things that's heartening when you're sad about the loss of a guy, to see how many people he touched that way.
Jared, he's in the same class for me as David Clymer. He is a Tennessean through and through, no matter how much of a Yankee he was leaning into. I mean, he was with Hope Hines at Channel 5 as we were in the collegiate era of Nashville sports, and took us through the professional gains that the city has seen, and was there along the way for all of it, both pre and post pro sports in Nashville. And he was legitimately someone you wanted their opinion on based on the news notes and rumors that were going on, that would help you understand, but also keep everyone consistent in the way that they were going about their day-to-day business for these teams. You wanted to know the criticisms that Mark had, because he was hard on the teams that he was covering, and he was doing that at Channel 5 prior to joining the Zone. So I look at him the same way I look at Clymer. I miss it dearly, and I will with Mark Howard the same way.
Yeah, I think a great comparison with David Clymer. David Clymer, though, grew up in Wilson County, where I grew up, and went to Lebanon High School. To me, much more of an insider, and I don't say that as a knock to Mark. Mark, to me, Jared, was the first legitimate outsider in Nashville sports, and the most true outsider, because I can't think of anyone that had a bigger impact that was so different from everything in Nashville. Even if you weren't from Nashville and you were on TV, it felt like when you grew up, this person is from around here.
Sure.
Right? It all was kind of a similar sensibility, whether it be on Sportstalk radio, on television, with the writing. And Mark Howard was the first guy I could think of that was so legitimately, organically not from here. And I say that as a compliment, because he wasn't from here. People that listened to him or watched him knew he wasn't from here, yet they grew to love him. And they grew to love his honesty and how genuine he was about things. And I think that's, to me, sort of the lasting legacy of what he left here in Nashville sports.
That's probably a big part of why he and I hit it off, a couple of Yankees.
Mm-hmm. I actually was thinking about that yesterday. I was watching the Sunday Night Baseball game, and they had an ad for the Derek Jeter documentary, and there was a part of me that was like, Mark didn't get to finish the Derek Jeter documentary, because even though I hadn't talked to him about it, You guys know as well as I do that Mark, at the second that he could get his hands on the Jeter documentary, he was watching it and was probably excited for the future episodes. And that's just the kind of guy he was. He liked what he liked, and he said it how he felt.
He definitely would have loved to have seen the rest of that, but I guarantee you there's nothing that ever came out about Thurman Munson, his favorite Yankee, that he didn't see.
I can also guarantee you that he would have been the only media member to, and I know he did this even without having the full-time show, that would watch the NHL and MLB drafts. Like that guy, he would physically sit and torture himself by watching those things, so he could take physical notes on what the analysis was on these guys.
And Canadian junior hockey. I
He
get grief about all that stuff all the time. I'm like, you do not have to watch this. There's nobody else in the city who cares.
He knew more about Swedish hockey prospects than anyone in the history of Nashville sports. That's for sure.
I think the last thing I'll leave you guys with is when yesterday, when the news was circulating that he had passed away, I talked with people at the Titans and at the Predators, and they were as devastated as we all were. And you guys bring up the honesty. I mean, he and Frank, and Paul was a big part of this too. When I was a kid, they used to get into it all the time. Mark never shied away from saying what he thought about the Titans. He never shied away about the Predators. And for both teams to be as upset as they were, as upset as the fans were, I thought really proved what he meant to this city.
Well, and Paul was right there for it, and is more the insider of that relationship. But I thought Mark and Frank were such a great yin and yang because Frank had this way about even his speech pattern. You know, when he was on, he was so calm, and Mark was not that type of personality. He was going to be very direct. He was going to go through his notes. He was very serious about what he was talking about. And Frank was the perfect foil to Mark Howard in that he wouldn't care as much, he wouldn't get worked up, and in doing so would get Mark more and more worked up, which I thought was a beautiful chemistry between the two for so many years on radio.
He was very approachable, Jared, like from a behind-the-scenes standpoint. I think that helps him a lot with the teams that you're bringing up that would speak on his behalf too, despite how critical he may have been on any given moment with those teams. He knew everyone on a first-name basis. He would know that, for instance, producers that he's worked with, salespeople in the building, he knew their kids by name. So I think making the way he was approachable, but also the way he treated others behind the scenes went a long way. And this started back whenever he was with WTVF and Channel 5 to the last time he was turning a microphone on. The subject matters locally I'm speaking of that he was discussing from Knoxville to Nashville to Memphis. He knew the subject matter, and he knew the people behind the scenes there because he had just talked with them the night prior to get information.
They covered the team stuff perfectly. I'll jump in with one more memory that's just coming to me. It was some newfangled, I don't even think it was a video game. It was something you did on your computer. And it was kind of a metaverse kind of thing where you could build a life for yourself. And so we were talking through building these new lives for ourselves, and we were correcting our stuff. We were inserting our dreams into this life. But once we got started on that, then we started correcting everybody else's life for them, So we were making Mark skinny, and we were making Frank smart, and we were going on and on. Oh, my God. We were having a field day with this, and I think we kept texting each other about it for a couple days after that. Just had a blast.
Guys, this is the last one I'm going to leave you with. And again, Outkick 360 with us here, remembering Mark Howard. We, both Caroline and I, worked with him in comparison to you guys so little compared to how often you guys saw him. Jack was such a big part of what he did and talked about and what he cared about around us. And I think a lot of people last night were thinking about Jack. We were thinking about Jack. Just the relationship that he had being a father with Jack and what that meant to you guys.
Yeah, especially on the weekends, the weekend shows, whenever Jack would have been early middle school, right before high school, he was around quite a bit for the Titans broadcast. And whenever the Preds were on the early portion of the Preds games during the week, Jack would be there, and he'd be hanging out in the hallway, and I would always stop and say hello to Jack. And Jack made it known that his last name was Levinson, not Howard. He hated that. So whenever I would walk by, I'd be like, "What's up, Jack Howard?" He's like, "No, my last name's Levinson." And so we would hit it off there, and then I would make him thank me for the Christmas gifts that he received the year prior. But it's a huge point of emphasis for Mark to always include Jack and what they were doing. The things that come to mind specifically are the comedy shows that he would take Jack to, the movies. I thought, just walking, I was like, Jack, you realize how awesome it is that you're going to a rated R movie tonight?
Mark didn't look at ratings.
Mark did not care about ratings. As long as Jack was entertained, he was going to make sure that they went, and then they would rehash what happened afterwards. Jack was more well-versed on the ways of the world than I was whenever I was in college and he was in middle school. But, yeah, he made sure Jack was the priority of what was going on in the world of sports that day for him.
Last I heard, Jack was quite a chef.
Yeah, he went to culinary school.
And so I hope he continues with that. I know Mark was very proud of what his son was able to do in the kitchen. And Jack was older than my son Simon, and so I got kind of a preview of fatherhood from Mark that way, a proud dad who was, telling me about the exciting stages of parenthood with a young son, and those were valuable previews for me as I got to those benchmarks.
I can still hear him just around the studio calling for Jackie.
Yeah.
He was always telling him to stop doing something or for him to come into the studio to do something.
Or get out of that office.
But you could definitely see.
Some mischief.
It's funny because I just looked it up. I was trying to see the year. I remember having a conversation with Mark about the movie Good Boys, which seemed like just a friendly adolescent type comedy. But it is a hard R, is what I would say with that movie. And I remember he went and I was like, I don't know that I would take my young son to see that movie, but he did. And I highly recommended it.
It's
pretty good.
Judging a book by its cover, Good Boys.
Yeah,
not bad.
Mark thought it was funny too. So it's a good film.
Paul Kaharski, Jonathan Hutton, Chad Withrow, Outkick 360, of course, on 94.9 The Fan. Guys, thanks for doing this. Unfortunate the circumstances, but it was great to talk to you guys, and it was great to hear what you said about it. And very nice words about Mark.
Is Caroline there?
I'm here. I'm alive. Hey, Paul.
Hey, good to hear from you as always. Glad you got to speak.
Hey.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for giving Paul energy this afternoon.
I will say this.
Jared.
Caroline talking about Mark earlier today, I mean, it got to me.
Come on, she didn't get this.
We'll go back and listen to that.
We'll talk about Mark bringing Jack to movies. He was telling me about it one day, and the next day I came back and I said, Mark, how was the movie? He said, it sucked. And I thought, wow, even still, you bring your kid to movies. You're a good dad. And I'm glad I got to tell him that he was a good dad because he was.
Look, we got to hear from you. I got you some airtime.
There we go.
There
Appreciate
you
you,
go. Paul Kaharski, a man of the people, joining us here on the program. Guys, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you.
Yep. Those guys, Outkick 360, joining us on the program. And I'll say this, it's funny because I know how, I know what I know of Mark and what you know of Mark, and it doesn't compare to what those guys know of Mark. I mean, those guys truly grew up, not just grew up with Mark on the air like people like me grew up with Mark on the air, but they grew up as people with Mark Howard. We'll get some reaction on it, and of course, I have a couple thoughts as well as we remember our friend Mark Howard. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company on 1025 The Game.
If you're on the road between downtown Nashville,
they're still in good shape to make the playoffs.
And I-840.
Players make it clear they don't want to be somewhere anymore.
There's a new way to hear all your favorite shows and sports programming on 1025 The Game.
And he has added players that do fit.
What I was worried about is that they were still just going to keep the goal.
It's 106.3 FM.
Think about all the good Titans teams. This is very much so a run-first offense.
Now you have two choices to hear Nashville's best sports talk. Check out 106.3 now and add it as a favorite.
Attention furniture buyers. Social Furniture is having a huge summer blowout sale in all departments. Don't wait, buy now. Your new furniture can be delivered the same day. At Social Furniture, our professional staff is ready to serve you with your furniture purchase. Summer is the best time to buy new furniture at Social Furniture. The savings are spectacular. For a limited time, Social Furniture is offering special financing for up to 60 months. That's right, up to 60 months. Don't wait. Visit Social Furniture today to save.
Rise and shine, honey. We don't want to miss our flight.
Our flight is in 7 hours. And we have TSA PreCheck with our Navy Federal flagship credit card.
TSA PreCheck? Getting my Bugle through security will be so much easier now.
Learn how you can earn up to 3 times points on travel with the flagship credit card at NavyFederal.org. Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission. Insured by NCUA.
Tennessee's tax-free holiday is here. Head to Electronic Express this weekend for great deals on back-to-school essentials like laptops, tablets, printers, and more, all tax-free. This weekend only, get an Acer laptop for $229 or an Apple iPad for $449. Don't miss out on a Microsoft Surface Pro bundle for $899 or an HP laptop for $499. Shop in-store or online with free financing. Electronic Express. We make it happen.
Hey, Willie Donick here. Are you feeling the sting of higher interest rates and higher costs? Those credit cards and other loans are costing more and more every month, and inflation is making everything else more expensive. Your home can save you right now. Your home value is up, and there's a ton of cash in it that you can access with Loan Pronto. Loan Pronto specializes in zero-cost cash-out home refis. You can get tens of thousands in as little as 2 weeks. Pay off those 23% rate credit cards and other loans. Consolidate everything into one super low payment. People who do this usually cut $800 or more from their monthly budget. If your home mortgage rate goes up a point or so, it's offset by your credit card rate going to zero. So call Loan Pronto now and unlock that equity and wipe out the bad debt. Do it now. You can even skip your next 2 house payments. Call 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Cutting the price of your wireless bill feels good, really good. Actually, it feels great. You should try it out. So cut your bill by switching to Straight Talk Wireless, now offering our $45 Silver Unlimited plan with 5 gigabytes of hotspot and nationwide 5G on America's largest, most dependable networks. The $45 Silver Unlimited plan from Straight Talk. Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise.
A month equals 30 days. See terms and conditions at straighttalk.com. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary.
Have you seen the selection of luxury pre-owned Rolex watches they now have at Genesis Diamonds? If not, prepare to be amazed.
If people really know the watch world, they come in and they're in shock. They're like, I cannot believe you have this selection here. They're able to see them, touch them, feel them.
Meet Genesis watch expert Charlie Rivers, who says over the past few years, Genesis buyers have scoured the world to build a collection of luxury pre-owned Rolexes, including all the hard-to-find models.
Daytonas, Pandas, Sky Dwellers, a huge selection of Submariners, Hulks, Kermits, anything that you could ever possibly want. We have every luxury pre-owned Rolex that we have here. We ensure that it's in pristine condition.
So come in today and find the timepiece of your dreams at Genesis. Or if you already own a Rolex and are looking to trade for a different model or even sell it, Genesis can help you get top dollar.
If you have a Rolex, definitely bring it in. I would love to see it and do a complimentary evaluation on it and see what we can do for you.
Genesis Diamonds, now with one of the largest selections of luxury pre-owned Rolexes in America. Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Hey Nashville, it's Max Kellerman, and you're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
You think there's any hope here with Julio Jones?
Yeah, I'm not throwing him overboard yet, but it was not an inspiring start. You want to send, somebody to take the piano off his back because he looked slow.
He did.
And that, a lot of times, and Chris will tell you, a lot of times when you look slow out there, it's because you're not comfortable or familiar, with the scheme. I know routes are routes and all that, but they got to play faster too. That was a huge thing. It looked like they were playing underwater last week.
The voice of reason on the pregame show, Mark Howard. I talked to Chris Sanders last night. He was devastated like everybody else with the news of Mark Howard. I will say this, talking to the Outkick guys, Kaharski, Withrow, Hutton, it raised my spirits a little bit talking about Mark Howard. I was going through my phone last night of these old text messages, that Mark and I would exchange, and a couple of them were awesome. My favorite one, so Chris said on the pregame show that he was worried. This was early in the season. I actually went back and was trying to find it. but he said on the pregame show, Chris Sanders did, that he was worried last year of the Texans. This was early in the season, that he was worried about the Texans.
That's a classic Chris Sanders take.
Oh, like a drive your car off the road Chris Sanders take.
100%.
And look, I love Chris Sanders like a brother, but I mean, Chris over the years has said things that I couldn't believe.
He's had some doozies.
And so Mark texted me on a Thursday night. The Texans must have gotten housed on Thursday, September 23rd, because Mark texted me and said, our guy Chris Sanders needs to be drug tested if he still thinks that the Houston Texans are good. And what I loved about that dynamic on the pregame show was, Chris would always say crazy things, and Floyd would kind of sidestep it and then kind of, I think, where, me, I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's crazy. Mark would give it back to Chris if Chris was being crazy. Then again, Mark give it to me too. So just listening to those guys talk about the advice they got from Mark and the things they learned from Mark, and listening to Paul talk about how he learned as a newspaper guy that on radio you could just have a good time and laugh, and people like that. And that's what Mark Howard was. I mean, Mark Howard was, I don't want to sit here and be like, he was a man's man, because that's not what I mean, but Mark was as authentic, and he liked what he liked. And if he liked something, he was all about it. And if he didn't like something, he didn't care. And I remember sometimes being like, so here's like something I talk about the pregame show, Mark John be like, I'm like, Mark don't want to talk about that.
Nope, he's over it.
Like, Mark don't want to know.
Well, the Outkick 360 guys were saying so much about how he was so prepared about so many different things.
Which is
true. But I think another important thing, he wasn't just prepared about those very niche topics. He was passionate about those very niche topics.
Very niche.
Very niche. Like, I remember we were doing one show together, and at the break, he said, are we going to plan to talk about some random, like, off-the-wall Blackhawk story? And I thought, you know what, no, Mark, no, I was not planning on talking about that, but if you feel so passionate to speak on it, he said, oh, yeah, I got something to say. So I thought, okay, please, by all means, because I think this is the only show in the state of Tennessee talking about this very random niche Blackhawk story. But he was passionate about it.
Mark texted me the night that Floyd died and said, and this is so Mark Howard, he said, hey, condolences about Floyd. I know you really looked up to him, really liked him. Could be really fun to be around. Other than jogging, he had no hobbies outside of football. I'm like, that is so Mark Howard. It is direct and to the point, and you know it's from the heart. And it reminded me of something that I texted him back, that there was a post-game show where Mark said something, and I texted Floyd about what Mark said. And Floyd said back, Mark doesn't know if it's pumped or stuffed. And I told Mark that Floyd said that. And, of course, Mark laughed about that. But, boy, he was a really good guy. He was a really good guy. And every time I read Paul's article, first of all, Paul Garski, if there's anybody that should talk about not being the same guy off the air that they are off the air, it might be Paul. But Paul has written some of the nicest columns about people that have passed away. Between his column about Floyd and his column about Mark, he has written some of the nicest stuff. And I think yesterday when Chase gave me the news and I was processing it, I was on the air on Sirius, and I would do a segment, and then as soon as the segment was over, I'd be thinking about Mark. And every time that happened, once I got off the air, I was almost on autopilot yesterday. And I was thinking a lot about Mark, and I drank a Diet Coke yesterday. I hate Diet Coke. Like, I think Diet Coke is awful. Like, not the Diet Coke's bad for you. I just think the taste is awful.
You also hate caffeine.
That too. I drank a whole Diet Coke last night in honor of Mark.
That was his drink of choice.
But just to hear the things that people are saying about Mark, there was a part of me that thought to myself, like, when I die, I hope people care about me as much as people care about Mark Howard. I hope people remember me for the person that I am as much as they remember Mark Howard for who he was. That's just one of the things I thought. And Mark was everything that everybody's saying about Mark. That's exactly who he was, both on the air, off the air. He was everything you thought. If you never met Mark Howard, everything you thought about him is true, because that's who he was. Adam in Portland wants to weigh in. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam, go ahead.
Well, he's been roasted. Like you talk about him roasting fans, man. He's roasted me a time or two. You can imagine, right? Like I'm passionate about what I'm passionate about, but long before you guys are next gen, right? You're going to be the future of the greats. He was a great, man. I've listened to him for a long time. I've kind of followed his career around a little bit. He's one of those voices, just like PK, just like George Plaster, even Jared, who you hear his voice and you're like, okay, I know it's him. It's always that you know what to expect with him. The temp really doesn't change too much. They kind of are what they are, and he's a special person to listen to, man. I've enjoyed him for a long time, and I was really bummed out.
I think what you said about that generation, that's a good call, Adam. Thank you for your call. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I was thinking about this today, and the era of sports talk radio in Nashville, and I can talk about pretty much everything sports talk related between the years of 1993 and right now, because I was addicted to sports talk radio as a kid. I can tell you about Boots Donnelly, Bob Bell on 106.7. I mean, I can go all the way back and all the radio stations that, have come up and then would go away and then would come up and go away. And I remember the George Plaster legal battle with 99.7. And honestly, I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about all these radio stations like this or anything. But, I mean, who cares? The thing that I was thinking about was when sports talk radio in Nashville really started. Sports Night with George Plaster and the group, whether it was Blake Fulton or Joe Biddle or Willie or Darren, those guys at 99.7, that was an evening sports show on a political talk station. When 104 became 104.5 The Zone and became an all-sports station, and it wasn't the first all-sports station in Nashville, but it was kind of the first big all-sports station in Nashville at the time. When that happened, Willie and Darren were doing the afternoons. George was in the middle of a lawsuit with Cumulus and ultimately won his lawsuit and got to, and he would do the Sports Zone in the afternoons. And they put together the show with Mark Howard, Kevin Ingram, and Frank Wycheck. And I think about all the times that I remember listening to that show as a kid. Like, I remember, and I've told the story multiple times today, I remember listening to that show with a learner's permit driving my dad's minivan at the time. I remember that show when Shea Weber picked up that dude from Detroit. I can't remember his name.
Zetterberg.
That's right. He picked up Hendrik Zetterberg after the Detroit game won, and he pummeled his head into the glass. And how he didn't get suspended, I'll never know. But then that day, so I was in college at the time. I was a senior in college, and I was really, you talk about taking a victory lap, I really did not give two poops about school. I drove in town, like left Louisville, went to the game, spent the night at my parents' house, woke up first thing in the morning to go back in time for class, and I'm listening to the Wake Up Zone as I'm driving, and I remember that so vividly. And it was like I had to hear what they had to say, specifically Mark. All the Titans talkbacks. I could think about when I was in Louisville, and I was on the radio at this point, and the Titans were freaking awful. And Mark would do Titans talkback, and Titans talkback was spicy when they were bad. And they had gone to Denver. Peyton Manning was at Denver. This was the year they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Seahawks. And if you listen on the stream, here's a fun fact for people out there. If you listen to the radio on the stream, whenever we dump somebody saying certain words you can't say, you hear it on the stream. At least that's how it used to be then. And they had a caller call in that said, Bob, go ahead. And, I mean, Mark could be, as I texted you yesterday, nobody cuts a caller off like Mark Howard. And, let's just say, Bob, go ahead. Yeah, I want to know why the Titans suck so much, blank, and what it feels like to be putting lipstick on that pig. And I hang up and listen. And Mark just goes, all right, okay. And I laughed so hard at his response to that. And I can think about all these little moments over the years that I've listened to the show and, PK and Frank getting into it and Mark, picking sides. And when I would work with Mark, I would think about those things, and I would think about how cool it was to be working with Mark Howard. And this is a really long-winded way of me not delivering what I was going to say, but what I was going to say is that was the tertiary group of Nashville sports radio. And no matter what happens, and this is just part of life that I've learned, because in the last year, 4 people that I've worked with on the radio have passed away. And it's something that I don't want to tell you, hey, get used to it, Caroline. But it feels like something to get used to, at least for me. But I think about, how they set such a standard in this town as far as sports radio was concerned. And I always thought it was cool, that I got the opportunity to work with Mark Howard. So I know that, you got to work with Mark Howard as well. But for a lot of people, Mark was the soundtrack of their lives, and we're going to really, really miss Mark around here. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We will get to some of your phones, plus resetting the topic of the day, the official Titans expectations. Stillman and Company, it's 102.5 The Game.
At some point, it's a combination of who did you play and what does your skill set look like.
Get the best analysis of the big stories in the sports world with ESPN's Jason Fitz.
If you reach for a quarterback in the draft because you need one, you're going to set your franchise back 5 years.
Join Fitzy every Wednesday at 4:30. Presented by Blood Assurance. Jason Fitz.
I am 5'9.5"
on ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
From the Fox 17 News Code Red Weather Center.
Scattered storms will be around for the remainder of the evening hours. We're looking at an unsettled pattern for much of the week. Heavy pockets of rain off and on throughout the afternoons. Highs expected in the low 90s. For Fox 17, I'm Chief Meteorologist Katie Morgan.
This weather report brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Attention investors.
In business, timing is everything, and today your timing is perfect. Credix Corporation is operating in many of the fastest growing and most profitable industries: real estate, retail, e-commerce, the CBD market, and family golf entertainment, with more to come.
We're helping investors on Main Street, not just Wall Street.
Credix recently entered into an agreement to purchase USA Hemp Store. One of the affiliates of the USA Hemp Store is NFL Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Namath.
Credix is offering an investment opportunity into shares of common stock at $1.20 per share. Invest for a $20,000 minimum investment, although we have the option of accepting subscriptions in a lesser amount.
Become an investor in one of the most exciting public companies today.
Space is limited. Call now for your free investor information kit. 800-881-1528. 800-881-1528. Or visit credixcorporation.com. CREDEX Corporation.com. An investment in Credix Corporation, the company. The information herein is not meant to replace or supplement the term sheet. For complete information and full disclaimers, visit credixcorporation.com/invest.
312 Pizza Company is Nashville's authentic Chicago pizzeria, and they're now hiring. Work for a family-owned business and be a part of their incredible team. 312 Pizza Company is hiring for all positions, including host, waitstaff, bartenders, cooks, and more. 312 Pizza Company offers health insurance and paid time off to full-time employees. Contact Kimberly at 615-730-7888 or email at contact@312pizzaco.com. 312 is an equal opportunity employer.
Winning this award is truly like winning the Super Bowl of car dealer awards for Mercedes-Benz.
Edwin Vickery, General Manager of Mercedes-Benz of Music City.
Culture eats strategy for lunch. You have to hit on all cylinders to win this award. You can strategize all you want. You got to still have the right tools, and our tools are our people.
Live the dream with 3-time Mercedes-Benz Best of the Best Award winner, Mercedes-Benz of Music City. Go to mbofmc.com.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Zines First is the official sign company for 102.5 The Game. Go to sfnash.com.
Nashville's Best Deals is a great place to save cash fast. Get up to half off or more on dining and entertainment at thegamenashville.com/deals. Check back often for new featured deals and save money now at thegamenashville.com/deals.
O'Reilly. This is Sarah's O'Reilly Auto Parts story.
Driving cross country with 2 young children is ambitious, to say the least. Then our check engine light came on. We pulled into O'Reilly Auto Parts and they tested it. Turned out it was a faulty sensor. They referred us to a great mechanic just down the street and we were back on the road in no time.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Robbie Stanley.
To avoid non-contact injuries and not repeat last year,
Joe Rexroad.
Just wait until next year's national TV schedule comes out.
Robbie and Rexroad. Mornings from 6 to 10 on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Stillman and Company.
Sounds like this has been a game-changing day for all of us.
Presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And on the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company here on the program. We will get to your phones in just a second. Let me say this. I am so tired of talking on the air about great people that have passed away, that are no longer with us, and what they meant to us and what they meant to you all in the city and everything else. So if everybody could please just
stay with us.
Stay with us. Because thinking about Floyd, thinking about Mark, it's definitely tough. So today, something that we always do is we always, at the start of the year, right before training camp, the Monday of training camp starts tomorrow, practice starts Wednesday, always set the official Titans expectations. What games they will win, what games they should win, which games are toss-up games, which games they should lose, and which games they will lose. For me, I have 6 games they will win. The Giants, at Washington, at Houston, versus Jacksonville, Texans. They should win, in my opinion. They should beat Denver at home. They should beat Philly on the road. They should beat Dallas at home, and they should beat the Raiders, but I'm uneasy. 2 toss-ups with the Colts. At Kansas City and at home versus Cincinnati. I think they should lose at the Chargers, and they should lose at the Bills, and they will lose at the Packers. What you do, you take the will wins and the should wins, add that up, take the toss-ups, half it. That leaves you with 12 wins. 12-5 is my official expectation. Caroline is 10-7, and Ian is 10.5 and 6.5. If gambling wasn't legal, I'm not sure we'd be allowed to say that in all seriousness. But those are our official expectations. Do we feel good about our official expectations of the Titans?
Good as in confident about a prediction, or good as in
you feel like you made the right choices to get where you are?
I think I made the right choices, and I really tried to make my predictions this year knowing what I know. I have a deeper understanding of the team and what to expect, knowing that there's probably going to be a game in there that they lose and they're not supposed to. There's going to be a game in there, maybe multiple, that they're supposed to lose and they win over with an overwhelming lead. So knowing what I know now about the team, I feel good about my predictions.
Ian, do you feel good?
I think I feel pretty solid. Yeah. You know, for me in the NFL, there's just so many toss-up games.
Sure.
You know, and so I feel a little cop-out-ish putting a bunch in the toss-up. But as we saw last year, I mean, these games come down to the last possession just so frequently.
I think I feel pretty good about it. I think I feel pretty good. 12-5. That was what they were last year. I expect them to be better on offense this year because you can't be worse. And, I mean, maybe that's like a Bobo take to say, I expect them to be better on offense because they were so bad last year. But I expect them to stay good on defense.
Yeah.
You know, because who knows, go in another direction, injuries, everything else. Let's go to your phones to close out the show today. I'm sure a lot of people want to weigh in on Mark. And, again, we will miss Mark very, very much around here and all the things he did with us. And and I'll say it like this, too. We're thinking about everybody at 104.5 that knew Mark, everybody that worked with Mark, everybody that cared about Mark. Not just Frank and Kevin, but everybody else as well. And I want to commend Jason Martin because I thought he did a fantastic job today honoring Mark. Go ahead.
Robin Clarksville texts in about Mark and says, I hate that I can't scoff at Mark's takes anymore. Other than the Preds, I like the exact opposite team of Mark. I would always shake my head and disagree in the car, and I hate that I can't do that anymore.
Well, I tell you, I've disagreed with Mark many a time in my life. Disagreed with Mark off the air. Disagree with Mark on the air. I've disagreed with Mark when I was 16. I know that feeling. You know, I think what's funny about my relationship with Mark was there have been people that I've looked up to in life who I've gone to for advice. And there are people that are older than me that have felt the need to give me advice. And it's kind of like the Ryan Tannehill, Malik Willis mentor comments. Most of those kind of things happen naturally. I never seeked Mark's advice on anything. I was never like, Mark, what do you think I should do with my career? Because when Mark and I started working together and got to know each other, I was like pretty well established in what I was doing. And so it wasn't like, hey, Mark, can you help me get my foot in the door or something like that? But the things that we would talk about between me, him, and Chris, during breaks of the pregame show or on the draft nights or, things that happened in his career. And it wasn't like he was looking to give advice. And it wasn't like I was looking to get advice. But there were a lot of morals to the story that I took away from it. And not just about sports or radio, but about life, about things like divorce. I've never been married, but just kind of what he would tell me about divorce and things like that. Just, I never forgot about those things. And that's something this season I'm definitely going to miss.
Well, I will say one experience I had with Mark Howard, I will say that coming into Nashville, not being from here, it's an intimidating market. It's a growing city, and a lot of the people on air here are all from here, born and raised here. I never knew that Mark wasn't from here. And one day he walked into the studio wearing a T-shirt for a high school that I happened to live 100 yards from when I lived in Connecticut. I said, how do you know that school? He said, I graduated from there. So it was so cool to be able to talk about, a city that he and I both lived in at some point in our lives, a city that he grew up in, a city that I kind of started my professional career in. And it almost calmed me a little bit because I thought he has been so successful in this market and everyone in this city loves him and he's not from here. So it was a really cool experience to talk about that and just understand, hey, I don't have to be from here to be able to make a name for myself in this city.
Well said. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here. ESPN Radio is coming up next. Everybody keep Mark, Jack, the Howard family. Keep them in your thoughts if you can, if you want to. We'll definitely be thinking about Mark. Again, gone too soon at 65. That's it for us. We're out of here.